Hello, hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. It is a warm Maryland night. We got the windows open. It is summer's come early to the old free state here of Maryland. Let's talk about Larys and let's talk about Varys. Okay. You may have heard me talking about this before, but I think it's worth getting into the details on why absolutely Larys Strong is cheese. Now, will they do this in the show? I don't know. But it's in my mind like, what's the point of Larys existing if he's not cheese? Like, what's the point of all of this if Larys is not cheese? And let's talk about this. Okay, so obviously, Larys Strong is supposed to parallel Varys. Overwhelmingly so, these parallels are made. I can't think of two characters who are so just obviously paralleled, where you're supposed to go, oh right, that, like, even when you talk about like Rhaenyra and Daenerys, who are definitely supposed to be paralleled, or Mushroom and Tyrion. There's only a few things here and there that really connect them. With Rhaenyra and Daenerys, this idea maybe that they're both going to be on Dragonstone, trying to get their fighting against a male Targaryen and being discounted because they're a woman, and things like this. Maybe being the hatcher of mother of dragons and things like this, perhaps. With Larys and Varys, it's just kind of overwhelming because it's like, not only are their names obviously just rhyming. I mean, you just have to take that L and tilt it, and it's a V. But it goes beyond Larys Varys. They're both Master of Whisperers. So right there, you have that connection as well. Additionally, Varys honeymoons as a jailer in the cells. And Larys' first job was a confessor, meaning he was down in the cells, like torturing people, trying to get them to confess. So they had similar jobs in that respect. So you're talking about like a master of whisperers and being down in the black cells doing shady stuff. So, and then it goes beyond that. When Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, Larys goes and hides in the walls for the entire time and is hiding in there for months, hidden, and no one can find him. And of course, the same thing happens with Varys. Like, Varys disappears after Tyrion's trial, and then just hides in the walls for months and months. And you're like, where is Varys? We don't know. And then he comes out. Not to mention, both Master of Whispers have a physical, I wouldn't say deformity, but like there's something off that makes them different. Larys being a clubfoot and Varys being castrated. Now, so we have all these similarities, right? You've got the black cells, you've got the Master of Whisperers aspect, you have them, working against the king as well, having this shady agenda of their own. A deformity of some sort, their name, it just, so clearly, like, overwhelmingly, we're supposed to think of these two as being similar. So what's the point of this? Like, well, we hear about this cheese character, and cheese, we'll bring up the actual, let me bring up the actual quote about cheese. Here we go. We can get rid of these now. You guys know what these guys look like. Okay. Cheese knew the red keep better than the shape of his own cock, Mushroom tells us. That's also kind of funny because Varys doesn't have a cock. If we're talking about Varys. The hidden doors and secret tunnels that Maegor the Cruel had built were as familiar to the rat catcher as the rats he hunted. Using a forgotten passageway, Cheese led Blood into the heart of the castle, unseen by any guard. Some say his quarry was the king himself, but Aegon was accompanied by the king's guard wherever he went, and even Cheese knew of no way in and out of Maegor's holdfast, save for the drawbridge, spanning the dry moat. And then he goes and he bounds and gags them, and then we get him talking, and he says that they're debt collectors. An eye for an eye, a son for a son. Is that what you want? To square things. Here's the thing. He's got a won't hurt the rest. Oh, you fine folk. Not one lil hair. Which one to lose, your grace? So they've purposely given him a kind of rough, commoner lingo. Which, of course, like when we talk about Varys has the Rugen character, who we do hear him talking gruff and everything when Eddard meets Varys secretly at some point. But like, you know, when Varys comes down and has his conversations, like Varys has this other alter ego that's a rough guy. He's a ruffian. And so Cheese is this ruffian. Now, even if you were just going to like ignore the Varys parallels, there's one other character that knows all of the tunnels, and that's Larys. We know that Larys disappears. So right here, you're supposed, you know, like there's this long explanation. Oh, Cheese knew the Red Keep. Okay. And then after this is all done, like Larys is commanded to find Cheese and can't do it. Like Larys Clubfoot was commanded to torture Blood and like get his name, and he was unable to get Blood's true name and things like this. Like Larys, has a career in torturing people, can't get the guy's name, you know? And no one was able to find Cheese. And so you really have, like, there's already some suspicious things here. Like, why isn't Larys, who's a professional torturer, able to get Blood's name out of him? Why were they unable to find Cheese? Like, you know, and then why are there only two characters that seem to know the tunnels? There's two characters that know the tunnels. It's Cheese and Larys. You know, like that's it. So the only other thing that people kind of say, like, oh, how can it be? There's two things that people bring up to me when they say, oh, well, Larys can't be Cheese. And they say, okay, well, one, what about his clubfoot? And I would just say, well, the clubfoot he's faking. He's faking just like Varys is faking being a eunuch. And Varys is faking being a eunuch. Larys is faking being a clubfoot. And the other is, why didn't Helena like recognize him? And the answer is he was in disguise. I mean, that's it. He was in disguise. There's times where people don't recognize Rugen, you know, as Varys. He's in disguise. That's it. And that's the end of it. Now, I don't know if the show is going to do anything with it, which is too bad or disappointing, because it's such an interesting twist to have Larys be Cheese and like show that. Maybe they'll have Blood and Cheese being hired by Larys in the show. But in Fire and Blood, I would have to say it's, you know, having gone through this text a few times, it's almost like I'm just positive. It's just one of those theories that I'm just like, no, they're totally the same person. Because why else would you have two characters know the tunnels and then one disappear and Larys be unable to get Blood's name out of him and unable to find Cheese? Like, it just, of course, Larys is Cheese. But why even have the tale to begin with, you know? But anyway, there it is, you know, somewhat laid out. So this Larys Varys, yes. Larys is Varys, yes. And we say like Larys Clubfoot is Varys' balls, yes. These are all true. I agree with you. Have you listened to the oral argument of Trump's immunity thoughts? Also, it will not allow me to purchase $2 super chat. Might be an issue. Oh, huh. Yeah, I don't know. The I haven't read like the text. I mean, I've read articles about the arguments, and they're ridiculous. Of course, no one should have. I mean, they're arguing immunity for a lot of different things. So, does a leaving president have immunity, or anything that a president does during his presidency? Do they have immunity for? Which would be chaos if that were true. Like you said, like the argument's been made in the news. Like, could Biden have like military elite force, like assassinated political opponents? No, of course not. Can a president like try to have a coup to stay in power? No, no, of course not. Of course the president doesn't have immunity for crimes outside of outside of presidential duties. Of course, and it's, I mean, I have no faith in the Supreme Court, but my God, if they allowed the president immunity on that, it's just ridiculous. And then Alito had this horrible argument that you need to give the president immunity because then he might want to stay in power because he'll be susceptible if he leaves office. And you're just like, what are you talking about? Like, every president has assumed that they don't have immunity and everything's been fine. It's a really weird, dangerous time in America with our Supreme Court. Our Supreme Court is just filled with the worst characters who don't seem to have any respect for law or logic, and that are clearly political hacks. I still kind of just don't believe they're gonna vote for Trump's immunity. It just seems ridiculous. Maybe it'll be a 5-4 decision, but man, if they gave Trump immunity. Now, Trump is also arguing that he has immunity for Stormy Daniels' situation, which no, he doesn't, on many reasons for that. One, he wasn't president yet. And two, it's a state charge. So, hopefully, I don't know how that, but they're just putting all arguments in to try to delay things. They just want to delay. But there's nothing even worth going into to analyzing the words of Trump's claims. It's so egregious that no right-minded person would think that a president should have absolute immunity for everything they do when they're in office. Come on, these aren't dictators. Anyway. Do you think they can keep the good quality in Hot D? That's a good question. And outside of Hot D, generally speaking, most shows decrease in quality over time. Some shows have little peaks in the middle. It's very rare that a show just keeps getting better and better and better and better, So when you say do you think Hot D is going to keep the good quality? It'll probably go just like all shows go down in quality. But you hope that decline isn't so bad, you think of Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad was a pretty good show all the way through. However, you can kind of say that the early seasons of Breaking Bad are definitely better than the later seasons of Breaking Bad. Or Game of Thrones, clearly season 1 was the best and it kind of goes downhill from there. Some people, there are other weird shows where the middle is the best, Seinfeld or something, where the middle episodes are all the best episodes. I'm trying to think of anything where the last season is the best, or the end is the best. That's very, very difficult. I'm sure somebody can come up with like shows where the ending is the best, but usually it's either usually the beginning is super strong and it decreases in quality, or it stumbles in the beginning, finds its footing, has this incredible quality in the middle, and then it goes downhill. But I've never heard of anything that's just like consistently awesome the whole way through, or increasing in ability, or increasing as time goes on. Anybody have any examples of shows that like, this person disagrees. They say Breaking Bad got better as it went on. I don't know. I really loved the first couple seasons. Always Sunny but Always Sunny season 1 was really funny. Yeah, The Office, the middle is definitely the best for sure. Oh, Better Call Saul. Yeah, I didn't watch it. Oh, Dark got better and better? Huh. Here's a controversial one. The ending of Lost. Leftovers had a great ending. Leftovers did have a good ending, but if I could say that like the last season as a whole was better than the first season, I don't know. I mean, it was a great last episode, but Last Airbender, interesting. Huh. Huh. Oh, did Carmine ever finish Battlestar Galactica? We're gonna have to ask him. We're gonna have to ask him later when he joins, um, about that. But long story short, no, I don't think Hot D can keep its good quality. I hope I'm wrong. Hope I'm wrong. I was wrong about. Look, I'm wrong about a lot of things. I was wrong about season 1. I thought the show wasn't going to be that great. It was pretty good. I'm not saying it was some people like, I think on my list that year, I said it was like the 5th best show of the year or something, I said it was pretty good, but I'm saying like, I think that it had a lot of stumbling episodes. For instance, episode 5, like, there's definitely like ridiculous scenes, but there's a lot of good scenes to balance it. So, we'll see if there's just more ridiculousness or whatever. Is House Strong loyal to the Greens or the Blacks? So there is a question of whether or not each of the Strongs is acting individually, or if the House has an agenda. So, from what we can tell, Lionel Strong in the source material was handpicked by Otto, and for the most part, he studied at the Citadel, and for the most part, he seemed to act. We get very little on him, but the few things we get seem to align with the fact that he's a Green. Harwin, we don't really have much on Harwin, but he just fought, and his sisters, Harwin and his sisters. But Harwin and his sisters follow around Rhaenyra like their entire career, and then disappear. The sisters just disappear. We don't know what happens to them. And then Larys, we're left wondering like, what are his loyalties? He definitely does things that are anti-black, and he does things that are anti-green. So, and he does some weird thing, like, but then he does some weird things where I'm just like, what was he doing there? So, Larys Strong was definitely in on the assassination plot to kill Aegon in the end. Okay, so he was not loyal to Aegon. And as I say, I think he's cheese. So that's like completely destructive to the Greens. But he does a lot to go against the Blacks as well. He plants rumors, and when Rhaenyra is in power, acting from the walls and things like this, and he does try to spirit off Maelor. The thing that is always a mystery to me, like, he seems to try to spirit off Maelor. He gives him to gives him to a Kingsguard and tries to have him escape with him. But did he plan for did he send that person off into a mob that he knew was going to rip them apart? I don't know. So I would say that like Larys was kind of, and then his weird defense of Corlys Velaryon near the end of the war is also kind of crazy, just out of nowhere. You're like, why are you defending Corlys Velaryon so much? So I think he's really hard to read, which is why I think the show went with, he's just crazy. He's just nuts. And that way they don't have to explain anything. He can just be this character of absolute chaos. I kind of believe that he is acting, that his choices try to extend the war. Whoever's in power, he tries to weaken them to even them out. And then when the blacks look like they're going to win, he tries to break them down. I think he is a Citadel. I think he's a Citadel player who's trying to destroy the Targaryen dynasty by and keeping the two powers at even levels so that they keep fighting. That's my best guess. It could be that George just wrote him doing crazy stuff and didn't think about it too much and was just like, fuck it. Like, see if you can figure Larys out. But I think he's anti both parties personally. But it'll take a lot more research. I have to get through, like, it's not that I haven't gone through Fire and Blood a bunch, but it's like my overanalyzing series like gets me to really, really know the material. And like once I kind of get through a lot of his actions, unfortunately so many of them are near the end of the war, and that's so many parts later. So, but my best guess is that he's against both of them, and that he's an agent who's trying to destroy the Targaryen dynasties. In anticipation of the Winds of Winter, Kellogg's has released a new kind of cereal they're calling Frosted Bran. Is there really a Frosted Bran cereal? I understand this is a joke, but is there? Oh, there is a Frosted Bran cereal. Frosted Bran. They seem to have popped on the sun from Raisin Bran, and just, well, it's pretty easy. They got the cornflakes going into the frosting machine. Just take the bran flakes, throw it in. That was it. Some ad wizard was like, I got it, Frosted Bran. What do people not like about bran flakes? They're not sweet enough. Do you think they'll bring up splitting the Seven Kingdoms in the show? There's a brief, it's very brief, reference to whether or not like Alicent has a. Oh right, I think there's a leak that maybe this is going to happen, because there in the source material there is a brief mention that perhaps the Seven Kingdoms could be broken into two as a I think this is after Rhaenyra takes King's Landing. And Alicent is like, okay, what if we split the kingdom in two? And Rhaenyra's like, what are you fucking talking about? Of one? Like, why would I split the kingdom in two? So it's certainly possible. I mean, anything to give Alicent more screen time. So the show is going to be doing whatever they can to give Rhaenyra and Alicent more screen time. They are the main characters of the show, but in the source material, they're both not really characters. Like, they play such a small role, both of them, in the war, which is kind of crazy, right? But let me see if I can find the quote about Alicent wanting to split the kingdom. It's such a weird little thing, but anything to no, I don't think I can find it, but nonetheless, I I think anything to give them more screen time. It's got to be, but that wouldn't happen until well into season 3. I think if it's the time I'm thinking of, like after Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, because they're going to end season 2 after the Gullet, which means like Conquest of King's Landing is going to be season 3. Larys didn't go into the wall because he somehow saw that the children were there and would use them as a tree conduit like Bloodraven thoughts. Oh, he didn't go to the wall because he somehow thought that the children could use the tree conduits like Bran, Bloodraven. So what Dakota Rama is talking about is when at the end of his life, at the end of the war, Hour of the Wolf comes, and Cregan Stark comes in, and he gets Larys, and he's just like, enough of this Larys bullshit. Okay, you can either take the black or you can get executed. And Larys is like, yeah, execute me. You know, like how many people choose that, right? And so he's beheaded. And then but he says, I have one request, you chop off my foot. And then the supposed foot, and then that foot goes missing. So no one knows if Larys was actually a clubfoot because his foot goes missing. But he didn't want to go to the wall. I think the quote he says is something like, I'm going to go to a warmer hell or something. I think in the head of Larys, like, he, or however his name is, Larys, whatever. In his head, he had all of the secrets, and so those secrets needed to die with him in order for the good of the realm, kind of thing. I think it was what was going on in his head, and I think like going to the wall, it would just be too many chances for that information to come out. Now, did he think that somehow his memories would end up in a werewood and be used by somebody? I don't know. I mean, that's pretty far. I mean, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I guess if he's like aware of the children of the forest and the others and all of these sorts of things, and he's thinking about like the secrets and knowledge that he has in his head, and he doesn't want them like taken by the children of the forest or Bloodraven or the werewood net. I mean, that's some very cool ideas, but we don't have no evidence that like very little evidence of anything. We have no evidence that he knows about any of the kind of greater story of others and children of the forest and werewood trees and second lives and things like this. But nothing's written that that it couldn't be. So does Tywin actually love any of his kids? Jaime. I think Tywin loves Jaime. I think he sees Jaime as, even though he gets in arguments with Jaime and such, he still sees Jaime as like strong and talented and like worthy of like passing on the Lannister name, which is why he like still had him named as heir, even though he was Kingsguard, right? I mean, love is as far as Tywin can love. I mean, so he sees Jaime as worthy to pass on the Lannister the Lannister legacy, right? You know, he's strong and talented and handsome and all this sort of stuff, you know. So he somehow thinks that he's delusional in thinking that somehow he'll give up his Kingsguard or still be able to inherit when he's Kingsguard and get Casterly Rock and stuff like that. So I think in that weird way, he must actually like Jaime, but I don't think I think he doesn't care about Cersei because Cersei's a woman. Like he thinks of her as a political pawn that to be used and cashed in at a certain time. And I mean, for the respect of the house and all of this, but you know, he doesn't see her as more than that. And Tyrion, I mean, I think on some level Tywin understands that Tyrion is a smart guy and stuff like that, but you know, he despises Tyrion. There's no getting around that. Because Tyrion reminds him of himself. So let's see, and he hates himself. So I think he does love Jaime, because Jaime is probably what Tywin wants to be. Might Dany live a second life in Drogon? Yeah, I would guess. I would guess that all the I mean, people never talk about this, but I would guess that all the Targaryens like live second lives on some level in their dragons. That within Balerion the Black Dread, for example, there is Aegon the Conqueror and is Maegor the Cruel. Like a piece of their souls are in there. Now, when they talk about second lives, they do talk about like the consciousness kind of, you know, blending away and becoming weaker over time, though, I think. So yeah, they're in there in the second life, but over time, like, you know, you're not plopping around, you know, having rational human thoughts like you are. Like, I mean, even when Bran wargs Summer, he thinks like Summer, you know, like, yes, he can direct Summer to different ideas, but to different places, but Summer is still thinking man claws and man smells and prowling and all of this. So yeah, you're getting that. I do think the Targaryens are living second lives in their dragons to some degree. You know, there's some piece of their souls are going to be in there. Wait, what? Larys is cheese? Varys is not a eunuch? Varys is not a eunuch. Varys is not a eunuch. I have to like bring this up a lot. People are like, what are you talking about? Varys is faking. Okay? We are told this at the end of A Dance with Dragons. Now, some people are like, maybe he's a eunuch and he's just playing up the high voice. Maybe, but come on. It's right here. When this is Varys went around Kevin and no reason to lie anymore. Says no. The eunuch's voice seemed deeper. He is here. So he's got a deep voice. He still has his fucking balls. Okay? He's lying about being a eunuch. He's not a eunuch. He's been lying and pretending. Varys is an act. There is no Varys. That's the idea. Not the question is like, who is the character? Like, who is the real Varys? I don't know, but he's not. Yeah, no, totally not a eunuch. Oh yes. You forgot to mention that Larys helps Aegon II escape. so he could retake King's Landing, and on another day, which parallels how Varys helped Aegon VI escape, so he could retake King's Landing later. Yes, there's actually two spiriting aways that Larys does that parallel Aegon. Aegon II spiriting him away to Dragonstone and hiding him on Dragonstone, where no one would expect him, and then later spiriting away Maelor. But and then Maelor is, has his head smashed in a parallel to whatever baby got their head smashed in during Robert's Rebellion, and Aegon II paralleling Aegon VI, like coming back and fighting Rhaenyra. With the other faces shown in season 2 trailer and the prevalence of rats in season 1, do you think they'll explore a Larys Warg Greenseer plot? I definitely thought about that. Like, what's the either the idea is that, so with the show and the rats, right? Like, you're definitely supposed to think that somebody is watching, from the walls. Are they watching through a rat? I don't know. I know it sounds really crazy to say, like, oh, people skin changing rats, but keep in mind that, like, there's an entire story called Dark Where the Tunnels about a telepath with many rats who, like, goes and he's blind himself and he sees through his telepathic network of rats. Okay. George R. Martin wrote a story called Dark Where the Tunnels. This is the plot. Like, this is not something that's, like, out of his like idea realm. So when you say, like, okay, could somebody be skin changing those rats to get an idea of what's going on in the Red Keep? Yes, it seems a little supernatural for the show that we've seen so far. But of course, like, this is also a world where people fly dragons and skin change wolves. Why? Possibly. I think right now it's just representing that, like, if a rat can come in and see what's going on, a human being can watch what's going on. I think they're probably just making that parallel, that Larys is in the walls watching. And then later being like, when the rat catcher comes, we know it's part of, like, Larys Strong's network. I don't know if the show is going to do Larys is cheese, but I'm thinking they're going to do cheese works for Larys at least, or cheese is one of Larys's rats, would be my guess. So, I mean, the Isle of Faces, though, I don't know what they're going to do with the Isle of Faces. It'd be pretty bold to actually go to the Isle of Faces. Like, the ultimate secret of George R. R. Martin that Game of Thrones didn't even, like, attempt to go to. Like, would House of the Dragon be as bold? I don't know if House. I don't know. Like, I understand that there's a flyby of Isle of Faces, but I just don't know if they're going to go there. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. They're prophecies or whatever, but it's such a bold mystery box to open. Unless George has told, like, Ryan Condal what's on the Isle of Faces. I just don't see anybody being, bold enough to be like, I'm going to write Isle of Faces, like, in season 2. Isle of Faces seems like if it were going to be done, it would be like the end of the show, and I don't think it's going to be done. I don't think anybody's going to be ballsy enough to do Isle of Faces. But it's not out of the realm of of possibilities that they're going to do skin changing rats, but I think it's just representing somebody's in the walls. When did the Oldtown conspiracy start? I think it probably started when Aegon arrived. um, I'm trying to think like the actual actions, because like pretty quickly they're trying to keep people from marrying Dreamfire Rhaena. That's pretty early. Like all of the when I say like all the suspicious like crap to keep Rhaenys and Rhaenyra off the throne, and then later Daenerys and things like this, um, like and the Maiden Vault and keeping Daemon Blackfire off the throne and all these sorts of actions, like the sort of logicness of like people making a fuss over who's monarch goes all the way back to Dreamfire Rhaena. So I want to say it's like right from the beginning. They're like, nope, not Dreamfire Rhaena. She can hatch eggs. Like we don't want dragons around. I think the minute Aegon arrived, they were like, how are we getting rid of dragons? I think it's like day one. They're like, yeah, you can be king, and we're immediately going to try to figure out how to get rid of those dragons. That'd be my guess. Because there's just so like the anti Dreamfire Rhaena stuff is just insane. It's just ridiculous. Doesn't like none of it makes any sense. Like Maegor wants to marry his niece. And everybody's like, no, you can't marry your niece. Like, what? Like, uncles marrying nieces is not like, in our world, it wasn't considered that bad. Like, it's not sibling. But the fact that everybody made this big like deal out of it, like, and then later they're like, fine, Jaehaerys, you can marry your sister. What? Like, you guys make no sense. You guys have no logic in what you think is incest. But yeah, from the beginning, the Oldtown conspiracy was on. On Sell Me Vid with Carmine, Ilya pointed out that Robert is a Targaryen. Yes, only fam outside of Aerys' kids. Made me realize that the War of the Roses parallel isn't just Stark Lannister. Starts with replacing grasping despot like Harry IV did with his cousin Richard II. Now, I will say, regarding Robert as a Targaryen, I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So I don't think they established Robert's lineage in a Game of Thrones. I think it later came in a Clash of Kings. Not that it's necessarily like, too important, but I think there was, this later idea that like Robert is also a Targaryen, yet he hates Targaryens. Like, would George have written that like logically if he thought Robert was a Targaryen from the beginning? Like that he had such a hate, like his grandma is a Targaryen, and she would have grown up at Storm's End with him, and his parents would have been dead, and he would have naturally like gone to his grandma. Like when you actually like think about Robert's like backstory, it doesn't really make any sense, and that's because a Game of Thrones was written and then later something was added and tacked on. So all these parallels to the War of the Roses are pretty loose, and I'm not sure if they're really thinking about it, if George is really thinking about it in that sense, like trying to parallel every aspect of something. He's just kind of thinking, on this day, I think that Robert is like Henry VIII, but on this day, he's like Edward II. You know, like he just like makes switches, and has similar things happening. But the Robert being a Targ is something that just it doesn't really fit. Like, and I don't even mean like fit logically. It doesn't fit thematically. Like this idea that we threw the Targaryens out, and now we're starting anew with this new dynasty. And it's like, oh well, but your grandma, you're still a Targaryen. Oh right, I'm yeah. So wouldn't everybody be thinking about that? Everybody be like, well, it's still a Targaryen dynasty. Like everyone would still say that. Which Song of Ice and Fire book is the least good? Huh. Oh, can I call in by Discord? About Larys. Let me Dragon Demands wants to call me here. Are we even we're not friends on Discord yet? All right. Just message me on Discord, DD, and then I'll give you the link to call in. Okay, Jamie. Oh, which I'm sorry. Which book is not There we go. Where are my messages here? I get my messages. The oh, so which Song of Ice and Fire book is the least good? I think my least favorite is a Clash of Kings. And keep in mind, there's chapters in a Clash of Kings I love. Like I love the prologue quite a bit. I think the Blackwater is brilliant. But I would say that I think a Clash of Kings is the weakest because the Tyrion story drags with a lot of kind of, I don't know, filler chapters, with him and Shay. It's I think the Sansa story drags with Dantos. It doesn't go anywhere for a long time, it doesn't get anywhere until a Storm of Swords. You're like, you could have resolved these things quicker. Arya wanders a bit and dealing with like Amory Lorch and the Mountain's Men and Jock and Agar. And then even Dany is given only 5 chapters, and Jon's story doesn't make any sense. Like it's his story with Qhorin Halfhand is just ridiculous. So I'd say Clash of Kings is the weakest book in my mind. Like it doesn't have the pulse and excitement of Storm. It doesn't have the groundbreaking, memorable stuff of A Game of Thrones. It doesn't have all of the detail and characterization of A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons. So that's where I'm going. So Jamie Wanted Dance with Dragons says Blackwood Castle was built before knowledge that round towers are better against catapults, but the Starks drove Blackwoods out of the north, and Winterfell's oldest section is round. Yes. So, Jamie's that's purposely supposed to be anachronistic. Like, there's many things in the story that are anachronistic, like for instance, stories about the rat cook at the wall with the Andal King. Like, why is there an Andal if we're talking about these really old stories of the Night Fort, that that happened so many thousands of years ago, or why are there's iron steel swords being put on Stark tombs? Why are they the Ironborn if there's no if everybody's using bronze? Like, there's so many little things where you're like, that's not right. Wait, what? And the towers thing is just another one of those things. We're supposed to understand that actually, history is off. There was some sort of advanced society, and the history that's written down by the maesters about the past is completely wrong, and there's something off. um, What? Your daughter is alone in the woods. Would you rather she encounter a random man or a bear? It depends on the bear. It depends on the man, right? Um, I mean, obviously, if it's a grizzly, uh, you'd rather have it be the random man. If she encounters a black bear, who cares, right? It's like, I mean, it all depends. This is one of those, like, depends. Like, this is a joke I often tell people. Like, what do you find when you stick your hands down an old man's pants? You know, the answer is depends, depends. But it's the same thing with the bear. Depends on the man, depends on the bear. What's Carmine? The Vicenio was like, get this brunette out of my family tree. That's funny. So is House Lannister Andor first men? So Lan the Clever is supposedly a first man kind of thing, but this is all kind of a retcon. So, obviously when we're reading a Game of Thrones, we get this idea that no, the Starks and the North, those are the people that have the blood of the first men, and then everybody else is kind of Andals, right? Like, this is the initial like dichotomy that we're presented, that there's this big difference between Northerners and people south of the neck. Those are Andals, and we got the blood of the first men. And this is a big deal when people are like, oh, when the wildlings are like, we're first men, we're like you, we're like the Starks. And then later on, especially the World of Ice and Fire, everything is retconned to like, no, actually all these fucking houses are first men. And you're like, everybody's a first man now. So okay, then what are we talking about with like people having the blood of the first men anymore? I mean, clearly this was like this idea of the first men are like the Celts, right? And the Celts keep getting, the Celts used to be all over Europe, and then they kind of get driven out and intermarried and things like that. And then we only think of the Celts being now Scotland and Ireland, when the Celts were all of Europe at one point, so clearly that's the reference being made, but it's then we find out, no, the Lannisters are first men, Age of Heroes kind of people, and you're like, oh, and I guess it makes talking about these like old Age of Heroes kind of stuff. Like, did I just? Oh, fuck. There we go. Sorry, guys. This is, I know you guys, you live for my screw ups. So I mean, I get why it was done. Like, we have all these stories now about like the Age of Heroes and stuff like that, and they want to have all of these familiar names in the Age of Heroes. But if you're putting them in the Age of Heroes, then I guess they're first men. But then everybody's sitting around going, "Oh, I got the blood of the first men in me," and you're like, "Oh, well, incompatible ideas." But so yeah, the Lannisters are supposed to be first men, but when you go, "I got the blood of the first men," well, like any Lannister could be like, "Yeah, me too." Like, go fuck yourself. I don't understand. I don't. um, everybody's a first man. Um, let's see here. Where are we? Clash as Jockin, not close to the worst. Well, I mean, Jockin's in A Feast for Crows. Everybody, a lot of people don't like Feast for Crows. In his last chapters in A Feast for Crows, Jaime calls Littlefinger a perfect hand. Another retcon in A Game of Thrones, he says Robert might have named Littlefinger God's help us. Does he really say perfect hand? I've forgotten about that, but you're right. That would be a retcon. Oh my gosh. You're right. He does say that. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. I'll have to show this. All right. What is... Let's go to my a search of Ice and Fire again, because you're right. And here it is. He says, if someone other than the Westermen needed to appease the Tyrells, there was always Mathis Rowan or even Peter Baelish. Littlefinger was as amiable as he was clever, but too low-born to threaten any of the great lords with no swords of his own. The perfect hand. Oh, that is you're right. That's a bad retcon. That's a bad retcon. So here's the thing about like we forget that because this happens before the story begins. But Jaime and Littlefinger lived in King's Landing at court together for years. They know each other very, very well. And Jaime knows Littlefinger is a slime ball, just like Renly knows Littlefinger's a slime ball, just like Stannis knows Littlefinger's a slime ball. Everybody knows Littlefinger's a slime ball until suddenly they forget that Littlefinger's a slime ball. And you can kind of go, okay, well, Jaime has very little interaction with Littlefinger, like during the story, because Jaime gets captured, and then he's, he goes off to war, then he gets captured, then he's on his journey, and then by the time he makes it back to King's Landing, Littlefinger's gone. Right? So, they have so little interaction in the book that you kind of just go, oh yeah, maybe Jaime would say that. No, he wouldn't. He knows Littlefinger for years. And he says in that original conversation with Cersei, like, oh God, what a horrible hand. You're right. It's a fuck up. It's a big fuck up. I'm trying to think of like why, like how, like, is Jaime changed? But he's just that'd be so naive to think that Littlefinger would be the perfect hand. I mean, the only way to make that fix is if you put quotes around it. The perfect hand. Oh man. That's a mess up. This is a really, I mean, I'm like, keep in mind, like, this is a really good point. I'm just like, oh my God, that's a really bad line. That's a really bad line. That anyone would think Sir Littlefinger would make a good hand. Is the Eyrie a bit ridiculous, impregnable? Yes, but also impractical. Yeah, I don't understand it when it comes to like. So the whole point of a castle, and I mean, okay, I do have an explanation for this, but okay. So I don't think the Eyrie is a castle in as a fort castle in a military sense, if that makes any sense. Because like the whole point of a castle is that you have this like military fortification that means that any enemy that wants to that the military fortification allows you to come out and do a sortie and then run back and be defended. So that means any military like force, because as the military force goes, it's not just the people marching, it's their baggage train, it's all of their food, their camp followers, everything that the logistical chain with the military is long. And so you can't, people go, oh, why don't you just ignore the castle? They're all hiding out in there. Well, you can't, because if you pass the castle, now your baggage train, all your logistics are in this big undefended line, and they can just run out of the castle and like cause chaos on it, right? So, in that sense, like that's the point of the castle, right? With the Eyrie, you're like, where are they trying to march to? And then is it realistic that the forces up in the Eyrie could come down and attack a baggage train and then run back up? And the problem is getting up to the Eyrie is so hard and so impractical that like, why would anyone go up there? And why would anyone come down? Like, And so it's completely impractical in a fort castle kind of sense. Like, where are you marching that the Eyrie would be effective in like stopping like a marching army? My only explanation for like what the Eyrie is that the Eyrie was, a place where everybody lived because of whatever, radiation, the long night, whatever it was. They all hid in there. And then it was this like cool place to live. And then randomly, like the Lord of the Eyrie wanted to live there as a cool place, not because it was a fortress or a castle in a military sense, but just that it was a cool place, and that's it. And the Gates of the Moon acted in every respect as the real defending point. That would be my guess, but yeah, completely. You're absolutely right. Completely impractical. Like any mother bear is really dangerous, right? No, it's not that bears aren't a threat, but like a black bear isn't going to kill you. Like you can fight a black bear, you can cover up, and a black bear is not really going to like slash you open. Like a grizzly is just going to destroy you. You just, the bear question is in the zeitgeist right now. It means illustration of the how predatory men are. No, I mean I don't. I honestly think that viewing random man in the forest as a rapist murderer is a ridiculous portrayal. Like, that's most people in the world, the vast majority, are law-abiding, regular people who do not want to kill, rape, or do any of that. I know like quite a few like female solo travelers who have traveled the world and like had no problems ever, you know, going country to country. But you know, this idea of this like backwater crazy man who's just going to rape the first woman who comes along is like ridiculous. Now, you know, is there a small percentage of men that are going to be that? Sure, you know. So I mean, but I think it's a weird thing to just like view a random man as like predatory murderer rapist. Like, no, like it's just a dude. He's just a dude. Like, you know. So it is. I mean, obviously, an Ice and Fire for us, they're all portrayed that way, but no, in the real world, people aren't really like that. Though it's funny, oh God, I got this really weird story. When I was in college, I had this friend, and she was studying German and in high school, and she decided that she was going to do go to Germany to practice her German. And she goes to Germany and she like stays with this German family. And this German family, for some reason, is like, hey, would you like to live at this camp for like a couple weeks? And to an American, she's like, oh, a camp? Like, and she's thinking archery, like canoes, like horseback riding. And she's like, oh yeah, sure. So she agrees that she's going to go live at this camp for a couple weeks. Well, it turns out it was a refugee camp for Russian refugees. There was this odd group of like ethnically German Russians that all of a sudden in the 80s and 90s like got asylum and got to move to Germany. It was really weird. But it's also very important because like Germany became very established as a place that knows how to deal with refugees because of this experience. And so they were actually, Germany is quite well equipped when Syrian refugees came in. Anyway, so she got sent to this like Russian refugee camp where no one spoke German. They all spoke Russian, and she could speak to no one. This is a 16-year-old girl, like at this random camp, bored off of her butt. So one day, she says, she's just like walking in the woods because she has nothing to do. And there's this random dude in the woods, like random dude in his like 20s or something. And she goes up to this guy and like they start hanging out and she just starts making out with him. And then the guy like wants to do more with her. And then she like kicks him and runs away. And like, I was like, it's a really, really weird random story because she was just like so bored that she was looking for some excitement. So she went off into the woods and there was a random dude in the woods. And, you know, that kind of happened. So I guess so. It's really weird. But what a story. What a story. Who is the Macbeth of the story? Cersei? Does there have to be a Macbeth of the story? I mean, we kind of think of, I guess a lot of people make this like Lady Macbeth, Cersei connection because they're both insane, right? And, you know, Macbeth, I guess, is a story about prophecy and things like that. But, you know, but let's see. Recently I saw a video about how Tolkien, by the way, hated Shakespeare. And one of the reasons he hated Shakespeare was because he thought Shakespeare was like a bad writer or something. He thought Shakespeare was a bad storyteller or something, and he hated the story of Macbeth. Hold on a second here. Okay. Aaron Greyjoy get triggered by Preston's creaky mic. It's true. I'm sorry. The creak. I'm trying to think where the creak comes from. The creak. Yeah, you hear that? It's so I was really sick of so how these mics like are delivered to you is they usually come with like clamps, and you kind of clamp them onto a desk. But I found that like the clamp was not really strong enough. When you start swiveling around the arm, the clamp like comes off. So I was like, this won't do. So I drilled a hole. I took a drill and I drilled a hole, and then I shoved in my my mic arm, and so now it's like firm and great, and it goes where I want. However, that creak is metal against wood in the pit of the desk. Bran 2 at Game of Thrones, unrivaled in the most shat on chapter competition. No, I mean, Trey, Carmine, and I sat down and we shat on Bran 2 a bit. And I think we shat on it a little bit because, one, like those early Game of Thrones chapters are so iconic that you think that they're kind of perfect, and I think there was that aspect of like, it's so beloved that you kind of have to like now take shots at it. But I do, it is really clumsy. I mean, I'm not going to say that like I dislike that chapter. It's like really well paced and it's short, and you get so much out of it, and it's it's the hook that pulls you in. It's not like, as I say, like Tyrion 7, a Dance with Dragons, where Tyrion goes to Volantis and does nothing. Like, no, that's a much worse chapter. Even though that chapter is beautiful, it's horrible. So it's Tyrion 7 doesn't have as many mistakes as Bran 2. But we'll see. I think it's because there's, your expectations are so high. Like those early chapters of A Game of Thrones are really fucking good. And then you hit Bran 2 and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? So many retcons. Yeah. Colin killed the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I haven't seen Colin Jost's thing yet. I saw Biden's speech, which was pretty good for being an old man. The eerie is a state of mind. Perfect hand equals different context. He says he's good for appeasing. No, if we go back to this, look at you really got to, I understand what you're saying, and I understand the desire to kind of have like something that makes sense and to give sort of the benefit of the doubt. But look at this sentence again. If Cersei can be put aside, Kevin may agree to serve as Tommen's hand. Oh. Hello, Meera. Hello. How goes it?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. What's been going on?
Uh, kid stuff, work stuff. I've been working on a defense of episode 9, season 1 that's about 20 pages right now.
Episode 9, season 1. People attack that episode?
Oh, just the what does Gladys call it? The reverse Kool-Aid man and the MacGuffin hunt.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, the Kool-Aid man. The Dragon Kool-Aid Man is the reverse in the sense that he's not bringing refreshment. Is that the idea?
And I guess coming through the floor, yeah, rather than like the wall or the
Rather than the
ceiling.
wall and not bringing refreshment. Um, I think it's a really great episode up until that point. You know,
Well, and I think a lot of people question the decision to have Alicent and Otto, send their people out because ultimately, like, Aegon's an adult and he's gonna, do whatever he wants as king regardless. But, without going too far into it, I think we learn a lot about them as characters, and Alicent demonstrates that, she is a player. She has her own pieces.
yeah. I mean, they needed to establish Alicent as someone who is gaining agency and not being shadowed by her father and things like that. I don't know if they really, they did their best considering it was a chase that didn't really matter. And you're like, wait, why are they? But I guess if you have this long thesis, you have a better argument for it as well. But I mean, I too put some criticism into to that episode as like, why are they, you know, what what's the big deal if Otto gets him first and Alicent gives him first? The whole thing is about whether Rhaenyra will be executed. Was that the whole thing, or whether peace terms would be sent?
Well,
Um,
and some of it was timing because I caught it on my third watch through. The Cargill twins tell Aegon the Hand will meet you outside the city walls. So
mm,
they were going to like remove him from King's Landing entirely until he could get all his ducks in a row.
gotcha.
So I think it's not even so much about long-term control as it is that um, if Alicent's able to crown Aegon right away and keep him within the city, she can dictate in that moment what happens with Rhaenyra.
I see. I see. I see. I see. How many pages is this defense?
It's currently 20.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Very briefly, I was going to finish up with this thought here. If Cersei put Kevin may agree to serve as Tommen's hand, so we're looking at good hands in this sense. So it's like Kevin, and then it's like Forley Prester would make a good choice. Roland Crakehall. If someone other than a Westerman was needed to appease the Tyrells, they could have Mathis Rowan or even Peter Baelish. Littlefinger was as amiable as he was clever, but too low-born to be threatened the great lords with no swords of his own. The perfect hand. So he like, even if you take this line, the perfect hand, and say, oh, it doesn't necessarily mean that, he's still saying Peter Baelish would be as good as Mathis Rowan, Roland Crakehall, Forley Prester. It's just, no, Littlefinger would suck. And Jamie should know Littlefinger would suck. Because he does the exact reverse in Bran 2. He lists horrible hands and puts Peter Baelish on the short list of horrible hands, as of the worst choices that are worse than Ned, you know. So yeah. So what else is going on, Meera? What are you? So you got your defense. Are you going to make a video on this, or what are you doing with it?
Yeah, that's the plan. The essay will be turned into a script and hopefully then turned around into a video.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, I've been a bit behind on that just with life and stuff, but I finally got the most recent Family Feud game up. Um, so that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I always have a bunch of scripts and half completed videos, and it's hard to get them to the finish line. You get all this energy and motivation when you get the idea, and then you're pushing it through, and then you're like, it's so much work to make it happen, and by then you've got a new great idea. So
Yeah, it's like I feel like I'm sitting on 10 half-finished ideas and I'm like, oh, this would be such a great video if I, just made it.
yeah, yeah. Some people still give me crap. I have a begun video that I haven't worked on forever called Damon the Hero. I have I have an over analyzing like one that I've recorded it all. I just haven't added the visuals. I have so many incomplete videos that it's just it's very sad. It's a sad graveyard. I mean, maybe they'll come back to life, but it's hard to
Yeah.
find the time, man. It's hard to find the time. Um, you said how many kids do you have?
Just the one, but
Just
it's
one.
also just me. So like the ratio is still,
Yeah, that's no good.
yeah. But no, he's a sweet kid. It's not a him thing. It's a me thing.
Yeah, I mean, at least when you got like joint custody, you get like 3 days off a week, but if
Yeah.
it's just you, yeah,
Well, and he does go to his dad's for a bit, but it's like Tuesday to Thursday in the middle of the week when I'm working like 10-hour days.
oh, okay. That's
So it's
yeah.
so it does help in terms of that I'm able to work longer and make more money, but then it's also,
When do you get date nights? Right.
yeah, or
Yeah.
editing nights or sleep.
Right. Sleep. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently it gets easier once they get older. I hear. I don't know. My kids are small, are pretty tiny.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our kids are about the same age.
Yeah, I got one that's 4.5 and one that's 1.5.
Okay, mine's 3.5. So
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
it's people say to me like, "Oh no, like 3 is the worst," and then they get better at age 4, and I'm like, "Nah, I don't know about that." All right, hello. I've got a crowd in here. I got Dragon Demands here as well right now. How's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, I just wanted to call in quickly about Larry.
yeah. So,
I
what
didn't want
what?
to interrupt her. I'm sorry I called this late. I couldn't figure out how to get the link to work.
No worries. It's
Well, funny
it's.
you should ask. Actually, it is related to what you were talking about with her about the backlog keeps piling up
Oh
of
yeah, I
all the
know.
that I was going to do a video on research I did on Larys Strong, and I realized, hey, you're doing a video. I might as well call in and give the short version, which was pretty interesting.
Okay. All
So
right.
this was supposed to be a video that I have been researching all of the interviews that everyone did for season one, and I haven't been able to report on all of them, but I'm trying to get it done in time for season two.
So they
And
interview the actor for Larry Strong.
so something that the Matthew Needham actor said, and it was actually the making of book, which was really interesting.
Mm.
Just a short 2-minute thing. I figured I might as well call in rather than let you wait until next month.
Sure.
But again, I'm sorry I called in the middle of her thing. I was here for an hour waiting online. But
I
here's the
no,
thing.
I mean I can't wait for like Carmine and Trey to call in and then let's just have a huge party line.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could have a party.
I can't say, but this is short. The big
Okay.
thing is everyone says he's the new Littlefinger, and he's
Hmm.
really the opposite the way the actor approached it. I mean,
Yeah.
directly the opposite, because I have calmed down a lot since 2017 when the world was gaslighting us that Benioff is a genius. And I know people think, oh, I'm the guy raving about him. Well, we were all raving about it after season 8. I was just ahead of the curve. And I've tried to stop the crazy and just more professionally go, look, these are the criticisms of this. But my whole thing is they were just pandering to the actors as stereotypes and caricatures of their own performance, to the point that even the actors were really upset about it. Like, we have cited quotes from Lena Headey saying, I don't want to just keep giving the stereotypical Cersei thing. Like, the point where she really argued with them, Cersei should be crying when Tommen dies, and they
Hmm.
overruled her. So just the actors turned into, like, I don't want it. Like, everyone turned into a one-dimensional caricature, Littlefinger.
Sure.
And
So what did Matthew
here's
Needham
what they
say?
did. Now the big thing is, I don't think Benioff has had the wherewithal to understand that Book Littlefinger, Martin himself has talked about this, Book Littlefinger is a sociopath, which means he has a magnetic personality. Everyone likes him. because when you're shameless, you just, his mannerisms are very friendly. He's quick with a
Mm,
smile.
mm, mm.
Sansa goes. Sansa is the one person who notices like his eyes don't smile when his mouth does. And I guess this ties into like, have you ever seen the O.J. Simpson documentary on ESPN because he just died?
No, no, I didn't. But I think
No,
you're talking
there is
about
a there
like the
is an
difference
extensive,
between
yeah,
like
there's yeah there's an
like Littlefinger being a sociopath and Larys
who
being
is
like a
that there's
psychopath.
the Hollywood Hannibal Lecter sociopath, and like in real life when you go, oh, he's a used car salesman, that means they have a magnetic personality. But when we see them on TV, they're like I call it the Snidley Whiplash routine of the whole point is they seem trustworthy. That so I don't sound crazy for you people on listening to your show who haven't seen the ESPN thing. They devote a good 10 minutes to people from OJ's past, remarking on independently he was just so magnetic and charming and could get away with lying. And there's this point where two of them who hadn't met went, "Oh, you just got juiced." That we have a term
Mm-mm.
for that when he lies or like he took the last cookie or whatever and then just smiles his way out of it. And just they have clips of this even on a podcast he did once where he's babbling in he's saying word salad basically, but in a warm voice. And the host of the radio shows is like 15 years ago goes, I can't help but be charmed by you. That it's all just that winning smile, the friendly voice. And it's weird that they caught that on camera. Don't take my word for it. It's like a 10-minute segment of the thing where people go, he had a really magnetic personality and he was really manipulative. So, but I'm not the only one who said this. Martin has said everyone likes Littlefinger because he is a textbook, real life, not a Hollywood psychopath. He's just
Mm.
warm and friendly, and it's all that is scary as hell when you see that in real life in serial killer documentaries. That these guys can be friendly as hell, and
Right,
it's just their
this is not
mannerisms.
what Matthew Needham is doing
No, well, the thing
with
is,
Larys.
TV Littlefinger is the exact opposite because Benioff got it in his head that it's cool to have him be a mustache twirling sinister villain who's one dimensional. Or like that's in nonsense in season 7 where like he's acting weird to John, really the creepy Littlefinger meme of, oh, I'll say hi to Sansa, and like he chokes him with one hand, throws him at a wall, and then there's no consequences to that scene. That it's just let's have
Mm.
a moment of Littlefinger being creepy all the time when that's not even what made him a terrifying villain. Was that people just it is scary when you have a villain who seems really trustworthy. And TV Littlefinger is just a caricature of this is bad writing. This is what like cheesy cop shows think villainous people are like, right? Well, with
Right,
all that
right, right.
preamble, I hope this wasn't too long. It turns out, as they originally conceived of Larry, I call him Larry because Larys is the Westeros version of Larry.
Sure,
From there was
sure.
Mo. Remember when there was Mo, Larry, and Curly in book one? It was Larys, Curliket, and the third one was a Mo thing. So because it's so people know I'm not slurring Varys. I just call him Larry Clubfoot. We call him.
Right,
I
right.
hope I haven't
So,
taken too long. Just give the whole setup of real sociopaths are scary because despite yourself they have magnetic mannerisms and everything, and
right,
TV
right.
Littlefinger wasn't that. This is like a children's comic book character. This is nothing. As they originally had him on the page, Larry Clubfoot was just this Littlefinger clone where they said he acts sinister, he's a sinister cripple.
Mm.
And it was not the writers, but the actor Matthew Needham, who put a lot of work into the character, came to the writers, and unlike Benioff and Weiss, who just shut down, no, Cersei would not cry at Tommen's wedding, make the concentrating face again with no dialogue. They said he completely reinvented the character for us, and he was a lot better as a result. That his take on Larry that makes him more, he's not quite charming though. That's not the contrast.
No, no, he's creepy.
He's somewhere in the middle. He's not Book Littlefinger either, where Book Littlefinger is magnetic.
Right, right.
It's this uncanny valley thing that he is genuinely trying to be pleasant on the show. That he when he's talking to young
Right, right.
Allison,
But
is,
failing,
oh, it would be
failing
a shame
miserably.
for
Right.
that, but because he doesn't have people emotions. He's trying and failing, and something seems off. And it's not like, oh, this is a multi-layer chess. It's he's trying to talk like a normal person and it comes off as stilted because he's bad at it. But they said
Mm-hmm.
that disconnect, it makes him creepier, that he's trying to be, I
Right,
can't
right,
imitate it.
right.
Oh, I'll be ashamed for that. Well, and trying to be that that offness
But
is so
nonetheless,
much more.
the character seems to be more of an invention of the actor
It
than the
is.
showrunners
So
or
and
script
it's
writers.
so
Yeah.
and what I was calling in for was these two things: that he's really not a Littlefinger clone, either book or TV show Littlefinger. That this whole, well, he tries to be nice, but it only comes off as more creepy. That's entirely separate. And on the utter contrast of how Condell and his team handled their show, that they would let the act, because it turns out Benioff wise, people, oh, I hate them, when you find out how much they micromanaged everyone's, like, this isn't your job, you're not the lighting director, why are you telling me to make it in total darkness when I'm
Mm, mm,
telling you to
mm,
your
mm.
face you will not be able to see this? That he would micromanage the actors' performances, that they really had a dialogue with, when you see like the script read and the actors are too terrified to say anything. Total contrast. And what this represents, that Matthew Needham, they gave him the freedom to make, and this demonstrates how this is to the betterment of the show and the character. He made a better take on the villain. I've heard that they submitted him for like Emmy supporting, like knowing he wouldn't get it, but on their short list of people they submitted for like best supporting actor Emmys. And I can seriously see him getting a not, of course, even Matt Smith got shut out from that. So what am I talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah,
But like
yeah.
like the screen actors go like, yeah, if I had to pick like the top 4 or 5 male performances down to supporting level, Needham. I remember we first saw him in that Chernobyl. He was briefly in the Chernobyl miniseries, but he is really good at
Huh.
this. And
Mm.
just he was in the university scene, but the I'm just calling it because you're asking what makes Larry tick. I laid on a video where I was going to report on. He gave a really good interview where he explained how he developed Larry so he's more than a Littlefinger clone, and the writers let him do it instead of
Mm.
micromanaging him like an idiot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The stronger, so when people, oh, he's Middlefinger, he's Littlefinger. It's really not. It's a very different take on the character.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
A lot of this is a very different thing, and I'm really the subtlety. I mean, it doesn't stand out as much as the other bigger stuff, and it's not like, hooray, I'm a fan. It's hard. People are fans of likable characters. It's hard to be a fan of someone who put a lot of thought into a very villainous character,
Sure,
who
sure,
isn't
sure,
just like
sure.
who isn't just like a Joker ripoff or something. But this is a really subtle, really good performance, and just for, I have the reputation of the guy who complains about
Yeah.
everything. I just, not for House of the Dragon. It's the difference between a Glidus piss take and when House of the Dragon came out, we shifted to our bliss takes.
Yeah.
That just everything
Um
is this what it's like having nice things? I don't know.
all right. I have to cut in just
Yep, yeah,
to do
that's the
some
end of my little rant here.
oh. I was, I was just going to cut in to try to do a few super chats and then
Nah, you gotta pay for the money. I'm done here.
well, thank you, Dragon Demands.
I hope that wasn't too long. It was a
No,
really
no,
good
no, no.
interview.
It was
The
really
actor gave a good
interesting.
character.
Thank you for stopping by,
All
and
right.
we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Cool. All
Cool,
right.
cool. Talk to you later, man. Okay. All right. Random question. LOL. Do you like David Lynch's work? I uh it's funny, like the first few David Lynch movies I saw, like Lost Highway, and I watched Twin Peaks and things like this. And it was the first time I'd ever been exposed to something so mysterious and chaotic and stuff that seems like it ought to make sense if you look at it more. And then the more you look at it, like the less sense it makes. And at first that was really like, it was really enrapturing. Enrapturing, is that a word? But I was enraptured by it. And so I did really like his work. And then I don't know, something happened later where I think I saw enough interviews with him or something where he kind of admits that, no, I'm just doing stuff randomly. Nothing means anything. I'm doing a bunch of crazy stuff. and it's like you spend all this time like thinking about it and you're like, well, what is he trying to say here? What's the message? And then you find out, no, there's no message. He's just being weird. And once that kind of like illusion is shattered, like where you think like he's making some incredibly intelligent, statement, and there's something that's going to make sense about the plot if you examine it enough, and then you eventually find out, no, there's nothing. Then it kind of like changed about my feelings about him. So I went from like being this huge lover to now being like, I'm not sure. I should probably rewatch some stuff to see if I still enjoy it. But I don't know. I mean, I definitely had a journey with him where I went from like being a huge fan and loving him to being like, there's just, it's like purposely gibberish, like, so I don't know. But I also still remember those feelings of excitement and love over him. So I don't know. Meera, how do you feel about David Lynch?
So I tried Twin Peaks
Yeah.
and I didn't like it. And then all the
Mm.
Lynch people came for me, no pun intended. But I felt vindicated a little bit. I saw a few months ago Joyce Carol Oates tweeted that she also didn't like Twin Peaks, and I was like, well, if she doesn't like it, I'm off the hook.
I try to think of his least cryptic movie, which I would say is what's the one with the blonde from I Heart Huckabee that was in Blood Moon? Was that not?
I know a few titles. My mom is a huge Lynch fan, and so this could just
Oh,
be
it's
my,
Mulholland Drive.
hmm.
Mulholland Drive is probably his least cryptic. That's the one that, like, even though it's weird, it kind of makes sense as the whole story. Once people kind of explain it. All right, this is what he has. He's got now I'm forgetting. Now I'm like, okay, Eraserhead. Eraserhead's very weird. Elephant Man. Elephant Man's a masterpiece of a movie. That's I can't sit, like, what a wonderful movie, Elephant Man. So no, I've got to be like just making Elephant Man by itself. Dune. Well, that's a weird one, but
I actually liked it. I mean, I haven't read the book still, because
yeah,
that was the one with Patrick Stewart, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Blue Velvet. I haven't seen Blue Velvet. Wild at Heart, I've seen. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, I've seen. Lost Highway, I've seen. That's Lost Highway is the one that's kind of just nutso. I've never seen The Straight Story. I've seen Mulholland Drive. I've never seen Inland Empire. So no, I've got to say that he doesn't always do crazy stuff, but
What I got from, because Joyce Carol Oates specifically said that she likes David Lynch, but she didn't like Twin Peaks, and I think some of it he was playing with, like the melodrama of daytime
mm,
soaps and everything, and that was the part of it that really grated on my nerves. Like I think it was Laura's mom, like
right.
weeping on the floor, and I was like, I can't deal with this sound.
Like he obviously wants you to feel awkward and weird and laugh at different times and find things creepy and find things like sexual. Like he wants you to feel all these emotions, and you do feel them. I guess my whole experience, I think, because even these earlier movies are so I mean, not Eraserhead, but all these earlier movies are actually somewhat normal compared to Lost Highway, which is chaos. And then Mulholland Drive, which is also kind of chaotic like Lost Highway, but it makes a little more sense. But man, Elephant Man really made me cry. That's a fucking great movie. Oh well, nah. I still like him. I guess I still like him. Oh man, if you don't like the Bear Man thing, you're going to love the Cixin Liu's Dark Forest theory. I mean, I know about the Dark Forest theory, like in general, like isn't the dark forest theory the idea that in three body problem that the solution to the Fermi paradox on why, unless I'm conflating and confusing things, I'm very well maybe the the whole thing with the Fermi paradox is where are the aliens, right? So many worlds, where are the aliens? Um, and so the dark forest is like, well, there's the aliens are all hiding because they don't want to attract attention because then they'll be conquered. And so, um, but maybe I'm, maybe I'm misrepresenting it because I haven't read Dark Forest, um, but yeah. Have you read Three Body Problem or seen the show, Mira?
I have not.
Oh, okay, okay. It's Benioff and Weiss like did another show and it was pretty good.
Eh,
It's pretty
oh.
good. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean I'm the first. I'd be the first person to be like, "Oh, that show's crap." No, it was pretty good. It was pretty good, especially considering
Well,
that the source material is pretty dry. And like any problems I had with the show were stuff that was actually taken from the book. So where I'm like, "That's a really
okay.
stupid idea." Oh no, that's from the book. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like really, is it a remarkable coincidence that the same woman that contacts aliens happens to run into a billionaire in the middle of Cultural Revolution China when in the 1970s there's like two billionaires on the planet? Isn't it a big coincidence? Well, that's from the book. Oh, okay. Like, but yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm misrepresenting the Dark Forest theory. Will Cersei escape the west and join Euron after he takes Oldtown? Also, against Jon Khan's advice, will Aegon marry Arianne and Marjorie both? Aegon style. Um, so on the first part, I think that the story is clearly set up for a um, Westerman Ironborn alliance. I think if you check out the appendices and you look at the different houses of the West, they all have weird connections to the Ironborn. There's a whole bunch, and like there being two house cases and things like this, and people being married to um, the discussion in Aeron chapters about Greenlander women and stuff like this. The house connections are there. Um, so I do think, and then the show went with Cersei getting together with Euron, so it kind of made it makes sense, and so I do think that was George's original plan. So will Cersei escape west? I think so. I think George said several people will sit the Iron Throne before the end of the book series, and so Tommen's got to get out of there. Cersei has to vacate King's Landing. And so I do see her escaping west and teaming up with the Ironborn. Um, Now, will Aegon marry Arianne and Marjorie? No, I don't think that's going to. I don't think that's in the cards. I
Yeah,
think,
no,
yeah,
that's very far-fetched, I think.
just because you're dealing with the Sparrow movement and they're religious zealots, and you're not going to have some king like immediately be like, "Oh, I'm going to marry two people in polygamy style." Also, I don't know if Marjorie's going to survive. She seems like she's going to die. And um, will Aegon marry Arianne is a more interesting question. Um, so yeah, maybe. I mean, I think Arianne is at least going to attempt to seduce him or make him fall in love with her because she believes she is hung up on Quentin. Quentin's not so hung up on her, but she's hung up on Quentin, and she thinks Quentin is coming with Dany, and she wants to have all of the glory in their sibling rivalry, and so I think she's going to try to, attach herself to Aegon because she thinks Quentin has attached himself to Dany.
I do think there's an interesting question about Marjorie that we've seen Mace Tyrell jump ship twice now.
Mm,
Uh, and I think, comedy comes in threes. So we see Marjorie marry Renly, and then Joffrey, and then Tommen. So if something were to happen to Tommen, Mace Tyrell might try to play that card again. Because I mean, Tommen's still a child. The wedding, the marriage was never consummated.
Yes, true.
And so I think we might see then finally him overplay his hand, because like Dorne and the Reach are always, like there's that tension there. It's a little bit at odds. We see that in Tyrion's trial. And so although I don't think Olenna would make that play. I think she's too smart. But Mace, left to his own devices, might think, oh, well, Tommen's gone, and you might as well give that a shot.
Yeah. I mean, I do think you're on to something with like Marjorie being thrice a widow and still a virgin, kind of a idea of the Renly Joffrey Tommen, and then do you keep having it done, but it also seems really funny that like A Feast for Crows ends with Marjorie being clearly the innocent one and Cersei being the guilty one. And we kind of know that Cersei's going to get off. So if the inverse of that happens, Marjorie's going to get killed. But logistically, that means Randall Tarley would have to give her up. So it's like thematically, it seems like Marjorie should be killed because it's an injustice that mirrors the injustice of Cersei getting off. But logistically, like, does it really make sense that Randall Tarley would give her up? Unless Randall Tarley just takes it upon himself to execute her. And it's like,
I was going to say, he doesn't seem to like women all that much regardless.
Right. He's just like, she deserves it, I think she's guilty, Okay, geez. Yeah. Especially if Randall Tarley's going to switch to somebody else's side, or, want to usurp.
Yeah. That's his like showing of good faith.
Yeah. I like the Hound as a mantle passed between outlaws. Will there be another after Lem if he dies? And will it go? Where will it go with Lem? Underrated part of A Feast for Crows. So with regards to like Lem, so yes, the Hound. Obviously the Hound kind of thematically means something different from Sandor Clegane. Like the Hound is kind of, this representation of probably, toxic masculinity and so it passes from the Hound to Rorg, and it passes from Rorg to Lem. And I think that there's clearly something going on with Brienne saying to Jaime, you need to go see the Hound. The Hound is somehow, it's important that Lem has that helmet. And I don't know if she's using it as a trick for Jaime, or if it's a trick that she's going to be playing on the Brotherhood Without Banners, or what. But it seems like she'd be tricking Jaime into thinking that it's the Hound when it's in fact Lem. But yeah, what does it have? Does it need to have more people taking the helm? It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, 3 is always the nice round number, right? The magic number. Who else would choose to wear it after Lem? You need somebody as dumb and dickish as Lem Lemoncloak to wear it. And who's that dumb in the Brotherhood, or would Jaime bring it somewhere to as a trophy? I don't know. That's a good question though. That's something I'd have to think about. Where do you go with that helmet? Oh well. Paying my dues for too many edgelord comments. Why thank you, Paul. Tolkien's March of the Ents was in response to the trees coming to Dusanane prophecy in Macbeth that he thought was a letdown. Wasn't fantastical. Yes, so apparently Tolkien didn't like Shakespeare. He thought Shakespeare was a poor storyteller, and he was especially disappointed with Macbeth because he thought that the prophecy at the end, I imagine he's talking about about Macduff being not of woman born, and he thought that was a letdown prophecy, which is very
Ironic.
ironic considering that like Tolkien uses a prophecy that's just as dumb, if not dumber. You know, like no man can kill the ring wraith, and it's like no man, but I'm a woman. Oh yeah, of course. Like how dare Tolkien? Like what? That's, I mean, what? How dare Tolkien criticize Shakespeare? When he does that, when he pulls that, that's ridiculous. But the thing is Shakespeare never tried to be a great storyteller. No one was ever like, Shakespeare was always about the prose. He was always about the moment, like every moment being fun and interesting and keeping, like writing the play that people would be watching and being engaged in at that moment. He wasn't going for, he stole most of, I mean, I don't want to say stole, but he borrowed most of the stories. Like he adapted some, like, Hamlet's adapted. I think Macbeth is adapted. Like they're not even his stories. He takes them from some other places and then just adds dialogue. So he's criticizing Shakespeare for something that Shakespeare never tried at. So I don't know. Like no one thinks that Shakespeare is no one says oh, what a great story. To a Shakespeare play. I mean, they're yeah, everybody dies at the end. Everybody dies at the end of every Shakespeare tragedy. And at the end of every comedy, they pretty much get together. They're and the histories, people die too. It's just, I don't know. But yeah, that's interesting. The trees coming to Dunedain prophecy. Which prophecy is that? Do you know which prophecy that is? I'm forgetting. Dunedain trees ents. Oh, here we go. I found a footnote to letter 163. The Ents are composed of philology, literature, and life. They owe their name to Aid Enta Guruk, an Anglo-Saxon connection. They're part of their story, I think, is my bitter disappointment and disgust from school days with the shabby use made in Shakespeare of the coming of great Burnham Wood to high Dunnison Hill. So maybe he's not talking about the woman-born thing. I long to devise
that makes sense then.
Yeah. The great Burnham Wood to hide Dunnison Hill. I long to devise a setting which the trees might actually really march to war, and into this has crept a mere piece of experience. The difference between the male and female attitudes to wild things. The difference between unpossessive love and gardening. Is there a difference between male and female attitudes to wild things? Who? That's a really weird thing. That's a very odd.
Yeah, I haven't read Macbeth since the year of our Lord 2009. So
yeah. I mean, it's a high school read. So
yeah.
I mean, I think I saw it after that, but
yeah, it was much better on stage, and I'll say that for anybody who never really got into Shakespeare, listen to full cast audio or go see a production. It can be a very dry read, but wonderful to hear, because that's how it was meant to be received. Because that was how I felt about Macbeth. I fell asleep reading it and then loved the stage play.
Oh yeah. Let's see here. Macbeth. Macbeth, a fictitious play, blah, blah, blah. Primary setting For example, Burnham Wood in Macbeth is a forest near Dunsinane Hill, where King Macbeth lives in his castle. Both these locations were once battlegrounds of significant conflicts in medieval Scotland. In the final act, the forest plays a pivotal role, and the prophecy of Macbeth receives that three witches remained he will remain king until Burnham Wood comes to Dunsinane. Because trees can't move, Macbeth believes it to be impossible. Oh, and so he feels himself invincible and rests easy. But unknowns to Macbeth, the primary antagonists form an army, and Burnham Wood is central in their plan to overthrow his reign. The forest is vital. Okay, and this is brought back in, by the way, in Ice and Fire at Deepwood Mont, where they dress up as trees and hide. And yes, okay, all right. Now this is all coming together. I don't know. I mean, to hate Macbeth over such a tiny thing, like the fact that like the prophecy did not actually involve walking trees, but a bunch of people hiding in trees, and the story is about the dude's hubris. Like it's not about like. It's
yeah,
not about...
and I took that as Tolkien saying that, like, as a boy, when he read that, he was disappointed that the trees didn't really come to life, and so he wanted to write a story where the trees came to life, and not,
Gotcha.
not like a criticism of Shakespeare for not doing it, but just kind of a like, oh man, I wish that had happened. Like all the people who will be disappointed when Varys isn't a merman. You know, it's like, would that have been cool? Sure. Is he a merman? Probably not.
Oh man. Thoughts on Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus is like the back in the 90s. Like this was a huge thing, and I've never read it, but like there's a whole bunch of similar kind of attitudes about like I want to say. Who's Steve Harvey does a lot of this advice about like what men want and what women want and things like that. And I think the problem with these books, and I think why they sell and work is they're similar to horoscopes, where you know anything you kind of say can fit, and so you go, oh right, and then you know it becomes self-fulfilling. So like the problem with like men and women, it's not that I don't think there are differences between men and women. Obviously there are, but there's not similarities between men, and there's not similarities between women. Those are the things that are hard, is finding a cohesive statement about men are like this, women are like this. It's not that I think men and women aren't very different, but men are different from men and women are different from women. And so when I hear these advice books and whatever, and attitudes about like what women want, what men want, I always kind of like, you know, take them with a grain of salt. I always made the joke though. I always make the big joke that like women, they only really want one thing. They want one thing. And then people are like, oh, really? And I go, yeah, you know, they want someone who actually really listens, you know? And right. And then everybody like
I will
nods.
speak for all women here. Yes.
Right. Now, the thing is though, as that is true, but I also think that's probably true of all men too. But you like, you know, like you think about it as like, oh, that is the thing that all women want, like someone to listen to them. Like, but all people want someone to listen to them, you know? So it's a little cheating. It's kind of like, you know, a universal thing that kind of works, you know?
Or like that joke of like, I wish women came with a manual, or I wish men came with a manual. It's like, well, they do. It's their mouth and their words and the things that they tell you. It's a very reliable manual.
That's true. But, you know, and also like what people really want in this world is like sympathy and understanding. We're all alone. And so like you want someone to like listen to you and understand, not, and so you feel like, you know, you're understood and not alone in this universe. Like that's what people want. This is like the big thing on like why like nice guys like didn't understand why women weren't into them. They're like, why aren't the girls going for me? I'm a nice guy. It's like people don't want nice. They want sympathy. They want to be understood. You know, like
Yeah.
some person that's nice to you all the time isn't understanding you because you're not necessarily nice. Like everybody's got a like evil and edge to them. What they want is like empathy and connection to someone that's like minded. Um,
Yeah. And
yeah,
sometimes empathy is like a reality check. You know, sometimes I want my friends to tell me when I'm being ridiculous so I don't make a
yeah.
fool of myself.
And it's like, it's like when people are like, why do girls go for assholes? Maybe those girls are assholes and they like to be around other assholes. Like that's the thing. Like that's
Yeah.
probably the reason. Also, assholes are confident, and everybody is attracted to confidence. But whoa, is this the first DD appearance on stream? Welcome. I mean, he's been in the chat, but yes, it was the first DD on stream. Okay. Um, Dizzy face. What's dizzy face? Let's see. I'm not sure what dizzy face. All these solid points on Larys, motivation, Larys versus Varys, and whenever I talk about House of the Dragon with my friends, I have to call him the foot guy. The yeah, I mean, I don't in the end because like as someone who has studied Fire and Blood quite a bit, um the fact that like I'm not really sure what Larys is doing. I can't imagine anyone can read Fire and Blood and come up with like a solid motivation on Larys. And certainly the showrunners didn't come up with that, and neither did the actor. And they're doing the best that they can. And if the character comes from the actor, he decided insanity is the best way to go for that character to explain his actions, which is probably true. Which is probably a pretty good one. He's certainly made the show interesting.
Oh,
Um,
so this came up. I know. There's been a lot of Larys versus Littlefinger this evening. But when I was doing my episode 9 breakdown, I was getting a lot of, and I know other people have too, of like Varys vibes, and it was specifically at this point he and Alicent have had a relationship for 10 years, and she's clearly sick of him.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then we see him, talk to Otto and say, oh, well, that time that I spend with Alicent could be to your benefit. And it reminded me of Cersei telling Tyrion, you think Varys is your friend. I thought he was my friend when I first came to court, but you
Mm,
learn.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
it felt like almost a direct parallel because it's like, Larys asked her if she wanted a friend. Alicent, I mean.
Yeah, yeah, that's that. Huh? I'd not made that. Yeah, I'd not made that connection. Um, of like, because I guess you don't think of Cersei as being, lonely. Like Alicent is. Like Alicent comes off as lonely. Like, she just wants a friend. She lost Rhaenyra and she has no friends now. Um, and while Cersei, she just like wants to drive. She just wants to be left alone. Why are you guys talking to me? But this idea of Cersei being lonely and thinking Varys would be her friend. Yeah,
Yeah, well, because she was a teenager when she married Robert. I mean, she was
yeah,
young.
yeah, yeah. It's
Um,
true. You're right. That um. So I guess Jamie is there. She has Jamie. So what?
True.
Who else? Allison does not have a Jamie character. So Cersei. Jamie seems to, or at least up until A Feast for Crows, supply everything that Cersei needs in terms of like friendship, romance. In her life, just not
Yeah.
power. She just wants more power, but he supplies everything else.
Well, so I would be really curious, like, what the point was when Cersei went from trusting him and trusting his information and changed over to, I deal with him when it's useful, but he's terrible and you shouldn't trust him. Because I think she was being honest with Tyrion in that moment.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's hear it for Dragon Demands. And our school shooters, just boys who want to be men. Is society killing the boys? um, hmm. What's in the mind of a school shooter? Um, I mean, I think. Hmm. I don't know what's in the mind. I mean, I don't necessarily know what's in the mind of a school shooter. I'm trying to think like the stereotype is that there are these loner guys who have no friends and then get really into like uh like the Columbine kids, right? And they don't have any friends and they're rejects, and then they want to come back and like kill all of the regular happy people, or they're bullies or whatever, and it's this like regaining of power for them or something. So I mean, I don't think they're boys who want to be men. So I think that like this framing is probably the thing that's the problem. Because if the problem, besides being nuts, is like a feeling of we'll say emasculation, right? There's this idea that like among men that they have to have the power. They have like society tells them that they have to have power all the time. You've got to have a good job and you've got to be rich and you've got to be a breadwinner and you have to be like hitting that shit. You need to have it all. And if you don't have all of that, you are less than a man. Um, and this, people attack, go at this from many different ways, saying, well, under capitalism, like how likely is it that you're really going to be rising up to becoming super wealthy? Like the chances are very small. And what's really the chances that you're going to be like scoring supermodels and stuff like that? So everybody, but TV keeps saying like, oh, you're not a real man unless you have that. Um, and
But
so
I
yeah.
feel like the same could be said for everybody because again, like we
Hmm.
get this talk about like, oh well, you can be super mom and you can be a high powered attorney and a single mom and you can have a YouTube channel. I'm joking,
Right.
but and it's not true. It's not. You have to half ass certain things and you're never going to be wealthy and you can be happy, but you're never
Mm.
gonna. You're probably
Yeah.
not going to make it to the Supreme Court that way, and it's.
I completely agree with you that it is a universal like problem that we all want more and more stuff, power, money, right? You know, we we're 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 human beings that can never be fully happy, and even if we achieve happiness, we always want more and more and more. But then somehow it gets reframed as certain things, like you're talking about it being framed as like the modern woman, the have it all modern woman. That's and it's also framed as masculinity to men. I'm sure it can be framed in many different ways. Uh, but it is this same like human desire for power and feeling that you haven't achieved power and therefore like feeling bad. Um, uh, and
Yeah,
and feeling despair for not having as much power as you think you ought to have. So I mean, I think you're right that it's like some general thing like that, but it does often get framed as like among this certain group of men as like masculinity. um so I don't know, it's so I
well,
find like male obsession with masculinity to be very weird and odd. um as this like this very empty pursuit. Um,
Yeah,
But
because like ideally, if if masculinity is being assertive and functioning outside of the home and blah blah blah, and femininity is being compassionate and empathetic, like ideally everybody is all of those things,
sure, yeah,
to be a well-rounded person.
yeah. But I also feel it's weird that like people try to frame because our society is so consumerist, they try to package like femininity and success and masculinity in these little doses. Like, oh, you feel like you're not sophisticated enough. Well, if you drink our wine, you'll suddenly be sophisticated. Like, oh, all I have to do is consume your product, and now I'm getting that feeling of power. Like, or like with women, it's like, oh, like I'm feeling so not successful or not powerful. Well, if you buy this makeup, you'll feel
Yeah, if
more
I
feminine.
get this $200 keratin treatment.
Right. Yeah. If I buy these shoes, like, with men, it's like, oh, if I grow a big burly beard and if I get a gun and if I have a pickup truck, like I'll suddenly feel like a man. Um, you know, I guess it all just comes from the same place. Like we all don't have power. We somehow feel like we deserve more of it. And all of these like mini solutions to it are like presented to us. Hmm. Well, that's the problem, but I haven't figured out how to stop school shootings. Oh wait, get rid of guns.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, Dark forest is the safest thing is to not trust a stranger you meet in a forest. Three body problem takes that to extreme. Intelligent life, snuff it out. Scary. Oh, I see. That other intelligent life would immediately react to other intelligent life in a hostile fashion. Um, yeah, but even when we talk about like societies running into each other, the stereotype is that oh, when societies run into each other, all of a sudden there's like war and somebody immediately tries to conquer the other. But that's not really the case. Like most of the time when societies run into each other, they just start trading. They don't
Yeah, they
attack.
make new food.
Right. Um, it is the minority of time that you end up like going to war. But I think it's it's the same with finding people in the forest. Like most of the time, the person's gonna be like, "Hey, how's it going? Okay. Oh, did you take this? Do you hike this trail? Oh yeah. No, okay. How many more miles? Oh, it's like 4 more miles. Okay. End of story. Like that's it.
Well,
Um,
that's why Starfleet has the Prime Directive, right? To,
to not interfere with the pre-warp civilizations that they're
yeah.
not ready for the technology.
Well, and I don't know if you've watched Strange New Worlds yet,
No, I
or if you're
haven't.
planning to.
No,
It
no, no. There's just too much Trek right now, and
yeah.
I've watched Picard, but only um, but yeah, I didn't even finish Enterprise, which is weird.
I never started Enterprise. Somebody once described it as George Bush in space, and then I never bothered.
Huh,
But
huh.
I really like Strange New Worlds. Anson Mount, who plays Pike, is incredible. And there is an episode, I won't spoil it, but they pose the question, what happens if a society that should be pre warp kind of accidentally stumbles backwards into warp technology? A civilization that's, kind of like Earth during the Cold War. What if the United States or the Soviets had gotten warp technology?
Yeah, yeah.
And that like the Federation wouldn't want to stumble into that mess. Um,
So this is on Three Body Problem. I think you're going to get to see that the source material is dry, and they took even from book 2 to get one season's worth. We'll see how they finish. So the rumor I heard among Three Body Problem fans is that everyone really just loves the second book, and the first and the third are like the lessers to the second, and so that in order to like make the show even better. They like grabbed some of the stuff from the second book in order to like fill things up, and then so it's if this is true, then like the second season should be good, and then like the third season should be like not as great as the story keeps going or whatever. But have you given up on B plus A equals J? If B plus A eloped and Ned usurped Jon to preserve the Tully alliance, I feel like it would be more meaningful reveal for Jon's story. So the whole idea is like let's fully admit that like the backstory for the Tower of Joy and the entire Tower of Joy situation, like, it doesn't make any sense, and anything could fit because nothing makes sense. Okay, like you can't take all the clues and anything and like figure it out. However, like thematically and in the show, you know, they had like R plus L equals J, but not in the sense that R plus L, like Jon is the chosen one to save the world, but that Jon being the child of Rhaegar and Lyanna causes even more problems and causes everything to fall apart, which is what we saw on the show. That there has to be a twist, right? Like the problem with R plus L equals J and why I hated it as a theory is that it's the classic hidden prince saves the world kind of idea, and that's how everybody saw it. When they said R plus L equals J, it was not just that's Jon's parentage. It's Jon is the chosen one, and he's going to sit the Iron Throne, and he's Azor Ahai, and he's going to like defeat the Night King. Like all of that went with it, and the show kind of showed no, none of that was true. Like Jon was not the chosen one. He didn't kill the Night King. His lineage caused division between him and Daenerys. So, in a sense, like the irony, the George R. Martin needed irony was there. I'm not saying season 8 was any good or anything like that, but like that was the solution. That R plus L equals J was a bad thing, not a good thing. And so like the way the show like portrayed it, I'm just like, well, okay, that makes sense. I kind of accept it as like what George was imagining. That. And so, you know, having like Brandon plus Ashara equal Jon, like completely possible as when you actually look at the text on page, sure. But, you know, it's just because the show like had the sort of thing. You know.
Yeah, I think the show's like biggest crime with that was saying that Rhaegar's first marriage was annulled, which is ridiculous because they had two
Right.
children. That, you know, I think there being, you know, a big debate, like let's say Rhaegar married Lyanna as like a second wife, you know, then there would be the people who, like, some might recognize Jon as legitimate because the Targaryens, you know, used to practice polygamy. And then
Right.
the other people, other camp who would say, well, no, like that second marriage isn't valid because Rhaegar was still married.
And it would cause more conflict, right? And I
Exactly.
used to make this argument all the time, like the whole point of Jon of the story is that like no one is agreeing on who's king, and it's a big mess, and everyone's like, you know, all these people were like R plus L equals J, everyone's gonna simultaneously be like Jon's king, and you're like, no one would do that. No one like
No.
like, or maybe some people would do it and then other people wouldn't, and then they'd want to kill each other, right? You know, it's just more and more conflict. And so I guess the show showed that. And so it's like, fine. That's probably what George's plan was. Um, you know, but, you know, could Jon be Brandon plus Ashar? I mean, George could change his mind, but but he has to write a book to have that in there.
Yeah. One day I keep hoping, you know.
Mere swamp was a metaphor for Americans getting swamp foot
What?
while mired in the jungles of Vietnam. I don't know about then then how does the pale sticky princes fit into that?
Well,
If the faith of the seven is the Catholic Church analog, which empire is used to spread? Where are the schisms and reformations? Um, so obviously this is all very loose, right? So yes, faith of the seven is supposed to be Catholic Church in a very broad sense, right? And then George was raised Catholic. He doesn't, he there's not very many Protestant ideas like in the story. I mean, only in maybe a general American sense, but but it's very Catholic focused. And then the schisms are like the Church of England schism, but I don't know if it's very clear in the beginning, the whole idea of setting Cersei aside and Robert being like King Henry VIII and Marjorie being like Anne Boleyn was definitely like something that George played with and then just didn't go anywhere with it. But there was definitely some sort of idea that there would be a king faith schism based on divorce. I mean, we kind of just talked about like Rhaegar and like could he have his marriage to Ellie annulled? Because these are things that King Henry VIII did, and then it's denied, and then he gets a divorce or whatever. But we don't hear about any of that happening during Robert's Rebellion. We don't hear about the Faith of the Seven playing any role in Robert's Rebellion, besides hiding Robert in a sept in the Battle of the Bells. But
it might be interesting because the Andals came from Andalos, and that's where the Faith of the Seven originated, like with Huger Hill. And the Faith of the Seven is now predominantly in Westeros, which for the last 300 years has been one country, give or take. That you're not going to have as many like cultural divisions within the church as you would, with say the Catholic Church, where it's all over Europe in different kingdoms and different languages, different cultures. But I would be interested to know like if there are any major differences between the faith as practiced in Westeros versus any Andals who remained in Essos.
Yeah, see, that is the big kind of difference is between like our history and Westeros, because if they're making the analogy that like okay, Christianity comes out of the Middle East, and then it makes it to Europe, and then the established church is the Catholic Church for Christianity, despite it being a Middle Eastern cult, in its infancy, coming from Canaan. So we kind of have the same idea of like the Andals. The religion comes from Andalos, makes it to Westeros. We have the established church there. But where are the Essos Faith of the Seven people? Like in those hills, are there still those like original churches? Because Christianity had those early schisms with with the Copts and the Syrians and the Armenians. Even before the Eastern Orthodox schism, there was the Oriental schisms of Christianity. Where are these other Faith of the Seven people in Essos that are supposed to kind of represent like the other Christian sects, but we never meet them.
Well, I do like the theory that like the Andals who were captured by the Valyrians and enslaved, that it was actually an Andal who became the first faceless man. And so then, in escaping and taking his people, he went back north through Andalos, but that's a very kind of open area, and you keep going and then you settle Bravos.
I see. I see.
And it, you know, like it's you know, way ancient history, and the World Book only tells you so much. But I do like that idea.
Right. And so, like, you're saying that in that sense, the stranger is like the many-faced God. Um, it's actually deriving from the same religion.
Hmm.
Yeah, rather than being, I think how they present the many-faced God now is like that he's a kind of like he's a pan entity that like they've taken a piece from every religion, and and that's the common aspect is that every religion has a death entity, and therefore it's going to be that.
Well, and I could see, like, you know, an Andal who'd been brought up in the faith of the Seven and then enslaved alongside people from different cultures, kind of coming to this
Hmm.
realization, and saying, you know, like, my understanding of the faith of the Seven now has shifted after, you know, being amongst all these other people, and now I have this new belief that comes out of that is, you know, the many faced God.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Thoughts on the wall? Thoughts. The wall creates the others is a metaphorical in a metaphorical literal sense. Also, does the timeline of the Long Night Others and Wildlings make sense? Um, I'm actually, yeah, I'm trying to think about the. So yes, so certainly in a metaphorical sense, like you build a wall, you now whoever's on the other side of the wall is the other, right? In the metaphorical sense. But now I'm trying to think of it in story. Like the creation does the creation of the wall create the others, or the others um are exist before the wall, because they're supposedly fighting them in the long night. But then how does the wall itself like affect the others? I mean, it's certainly the way of life of like if it's true that they're like sacrificing babies at the wall and things like that, the whole the whole system of having an other and human self of a wall like perpetuates because of the wall, um, and the Night's Watch and things like that. But does the timeline of the Long Night, the others, and the Wildlings make sense? Um, I think it doesn't make sense with the Andals in there. Somebody said that it makes sense if you consider that the Andals actually invaded around 8,000, and they were part of the whole Long Night fight too. Some people say it kind of like works out more. Um, but we don't have very much information, so it's hard to even say if it makes sense or not. Like we just kind of know, 8,000 years ago there was the long night, and then they built the wall. And you're like, okay, you know. And then there's things that don't fit with that, like Andals being in places that that shouldn't be. Um, Maesters existing, Lord Commanders, Steel and Rat Cooks, and I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything that really sticks out. I think there was something about like where the children of the forest are. Like if there's any children of the forest south of the. Oh right, they say Lewin says that the children of the forest disappear at the Andal invasion, and that the children of the forest are south of the wall, um, before the Andal invasion, which doesn't which might contradict if the idea is that the others are actually created by the children and they're all north of the wall, then they shouldn't be south of the wall, like during the Andal invasion kind of idea. Because again, like the last hero can't find the children, and he has to go north of the wall to find them. But isn't the last hero during the long nights? So yeah, we get a lot of confusion on like when the when the children fled north, And somebody did say if you fix it to where the Andals invade earlier and that they're part of the battle, then it makes a lot more sense. And I think I agree with that. Um, but yeah, it's very messy, and it's supposed to be messy because clearly some history is wrong. If the Stone Men are another iteration of the Werewood House of the Undying Idea, is their insanity the result of blended consciousness? We see Jon Con begin to experience the hive mind in the fanfic. So I will say that this idea of like dudes being covered with like moss and having a hive mind is something we see in a George R. R. Martin story called Men of Greywater Station, which Greywater Watch is probably named after, almost certainly named after. So could the Stone Men actually have some sort of disease or fungus or something on them that would give them blended consciousness, hive-minded? You know, do they kind of work together? And obviously, we're supposed to think about the others and whites and things like that when we think of the Stone Men. But does it go beyond a simple metaphor parallel? Like, you know, is there a literal blended consciousness of the Stone Men? I don't know. Meera, you think there's any chance that the Stone Men have telepathic abilities?
I mean, in a hypothetical sense, I guess it's possible, but that's not what I got from the story, no.
Yeah. I mean, you know, obviously we're supposed to like make the connection that they're like whites or whatever, who and whites do seem to have a hive mind, because they're all controlled by the others or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know if the whole discussion of the Shrouded Lord, if the Shrouded Lord is just supposed to be this like hint of the Night King, like we're supposed to think about the Night King by having this other story in there. Like the Squishers, like clearly when we hear the story of the Squishers, we're supposed to be thinking about the others. Are the Squishers real in story? I don't know. It's not necessarily important. You're just supposed to be thinking about the others. Like, are you supposed to be, you know, the Shrouded Lord is just a stand-in for the Night King that we're supposed to think about down the line?
Well, and I think the concept of whites, it's not so black and white, haha,
Hmm. Ha ha ha
that
ha ha ha.
that, if we think of them as, people or humanoids who are controlled by a fae, that depending on the group that the fae is from, or even depending on the individual, the way that they control their own whites will be different. So
Hmm.
some might give their whites more autonomy than others, and that's how, we see the difference between like cold hands versus the whites that attack Lord Mormont. Um, so with the Stone Men and with the Shrouded Lord, we might be seeing, a variation on that. That maybe it's something in between, or something entirely different. Um, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, in the end, I think in much in my alliances of Iron videos from like many years ago, I like toyed with this idea, which is why this idea is coming back, that perhaps the the Stone Men would have telepathy, but I think also, um, I don't know, we don't. I don't think there's any need for it. I think we get it. We get a kind of, a hint at it in a metaphorical sense, but not necessarily in any sort of like actual literal sense. I don't think Jon Con needs to have any hive mind or anything like that in a literal sense. If he ends up being like a Night King, leading a band of whites, like the Golden Company gets a bunch of gets grayscale and he is leading them, the parallel and metaphor is made, and he doesn't need to actually literally be a telepath with all of them because he's still controlling them, So, with Lysa doesn't go to Robert, as Jamie asks, because Jon didn't go to Robert. Why would she? She just killed her husband. Nuclear option, fleeing. All right, so this is getting back to, can we make Jamie and Cersei's conversation make any sense? And I think the answer is no. but so what Moonman is talking about is in Bran 2, Jamie and Cersei think that Lysa has accusations and she might have evidence of something. And at obviously this is written in a fashion where George is supposed to be confusing the reader, and he does such a good job that he confuses the plot. And you're supposed to be like, oh, are they talking about murder? But in the end, it's supposed to be incest. But that doesn't really make any sense because Lysa doesn't know about the incest. So I'm not sure what accusations they're talking about. What is Lysa accusing them of? There's no answer to it because the idea of the accusing, you're supposed to be thinking about murder, but in fact it's the incest. But Lysa doesn't know about the incest. So what is she accusing them of? She's accusing them of nothing. So what are they complaining about? They're complaining about nothing. Lysa has no accusations about Jamie and Cersei. Now, some people could say, okay, maybe Lysa did know about the incest. Okay, so that somehow Jon Arryn did his super sleuthing, told Lysa, and now Lysa would be accusing them of something, of incest. What? Why would she be doing that? Why would she be accusing them of incest when she just killed her husband? Lysa is deathly fearful of the Lannisters throughout the entire story. She is. Cat arrives with Tyrion and she flips out. Why are you doing this? She's so scared of the Lannisters that she sent a secret letter to Cat in her special language that only the two of them know because she's so scared of letting anyone know her accusation other than Cat. And yet she's going around King's Landing accusing people of stuff. No, there's no way to make Bran 2 make any sense. Lysa's not going around accusing anyone of anything. She's a scared character. She's not accusing them of murder. She's not accusing them of incest. They certainly don't. Jamie and Cersei certainly don't think they're being accused of murder. They think they're being accused of incest, but Lysa didn't know about the incest and certainly wasn't going around King's Landing accusing them of incest. So I wish there was a solution to this. There just isn't. And if she knew about the incest, it would be like the perfect thing to get them to not take Sweet Robin. But Carmine. How goes it?
All right, Dragon Demands, come on. It's time to go. Oh, wait, no, he's not here anymore. Oh, never mind. Oh. I'm too late. I missed him.
Oh.
Hey, Carmine.
Oh. How are you?
Hello, Meera.
There we go. What's been going on, man?
Stuff. I'm almost done with the Patreon exclusive we have, the 1 hour 30 Patreon exclusive we have, where finally Preston and I, after 7 years we've been collaborating. It's been 7 years.
Wow,
7 years. We finally have had maybe 8. We finally had the one discussion that we've never had before, talking at length about Pokemon. Yeah. So there it is. There it is. We gotta talk about Pokemon some more in the future.
Yeah. So Carmine and I had a discussion about Pokemon, because my 4-year-old has been asking me about Pokemon, and I needed to ask an expert about Pokemon so that I can answer my 4-year-old's questions.
You want to know what's funny? And because Meera knows what I'm talking about when I say how the Ice and Fire community is full of dumb fuck idiots and weirdos.
Do not rope me into this.
No, you like Meera knows what I'm talking. There's so many weirdos out here, and the Pokemon content creator community is also full of fucking weirdos and scandals, and it has nothing to do with Pokemon. Somehow, it always had to do with something with the people behind it. So, Jesus.
Yeah. I mean,
every community.
Every community.
The internet is full of weirdos, just at large. Yes.
Or, human beings.
Yeah.
Thoughts: we bought girlfriend's shoes because they looked hot in heels. Nascent foot fetishes. I think when we're talking about like Larys and his foot fetishes, and people that like have foot fetishes, they have fetishes for like the naked foot. I think like the whole like women being in various types of shoes might be something different. But that's more just like dress up, right?
Some guys are into the shoes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it, but I think it has to do with like, there's things like what's appropriate, like things that are appropriate, things that are inappropriate in real life is exciting. So like somebody that's completely naked except for their shoes is like strange and inappropriate, and therefore it's exciting, right? Like completely naked in just a hat is also like weird, right? Like, and it's like, but it's like, it's exciting because it's completely like odd and inappropriate. Like, you can't go outside just wearing a hat, like
not with that attitude,
right? Therefore, it's exciting. So I understand, naked woman only in heels, naked woman just in her athletic shoes. Like, yes, of course it's exciting because that's inappropriate. That's like weird,
You know what's funny? The same guy at Script, he literally just said, "That was a joke. Please don't analyze this." Hey, real quick, can I tell this fucking story about? I need to tell the audience this story about you. It's nothing bad, I promise, but like. Preston has so when I was dating this one woman a while back, and she was telling me how she goes, "Don't do that." I'm like, "Do what?" "Don't do the YouTuber thing. You have the YouTuber brain where you like to explain things. Don't do the YouTuber thing." And I'm like, I never realized that until I met this fucking guy. So can I tell the story about how you're hyper analytical and just YouTuber brain?
Okay.
Over a year ago, in the anime community, there was an incident that happened. It was the stupidest incident. This one anime YouTuber was selling merchandise, and I think he posted on Twitter. And then some asshole replied to him and said, "Bro, I used to bully kids on the bus who wore your t-shirts." And he got very upset. The anime YouTuber got very upset. He made a video about the incident, and he said, "That's awful. What an awful person. Where's the humanity?" And then someone out of nowhere, like at sundown, this random person drops the coldest quote, and he goes, "Humans are born everywhere. Humanity, not so much." Great quote. Great quote. And I'm explaining this to Preston. Preston goes, "That's interesting, Carmine. You see, the ancient Egyptians once believed that humanity and this motherfucker just goes into this like explanation about like humanity and human. Like I'm not making a joke. You did this. You explained to me for like 3 minutes.
I have no
like
memory
humanity
of it. I have no memory of this. But yes,
you're so YouTuber brain. Like you got to explain everything.
Yeah.
I think there's a chicken egg question here. I think it's more that people who like to go in depth and hyper explain things become YouTubers. It's not that YouTube does this to you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we're like our education system like teaches us to like
See, he's doing it
analyze.
again.
Well, I find this very relatable. I was accused of this before I even started a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I would be accused of lecturing, but I think it's just fun.
Sure.
It's just sharing information.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have a problem with it. I just find it funny. Like, I just find it funny. And by the way, Trip Zombies here. Are you gonna watch Shogun? Will you do a review?
Yes, this is thoughts on Shogun. Will you do a review? Carmine has been bugging me every single day to watch Shogun so that we can do a review. So I will get to it. I will get to it.
You live in Asia. Like this is your jam.
No,
it's Japanese Game of Thrones.
I know. Not to mention I read the book. I love the book. I will get to it this week. It's just I've had so little time, and it's just that's it. I will watch it this week. Carmine and I will be talking about it. We'll be talking about Shogun.
We talked about it briefly. Patreon exclusive. How some dumb fuck was like, the women in Shogun are portrayed better than the women in Game of Thrones. Like, shut up, shut the fuck up.
Well, it's odd. The yes, we talk about that. We talk about that issue, but I need to watch the show. Lysa leaving court would make it seem like she knows about the twin cest, at least to Jaime and Cersei. I'm trying to think this through. That like when they say I'm surprised Lysa isn't here with her accusations. We're saying that the act of leaving by itself makes them think, oh gosh, she must know something. Now it's, of course, Cersei's insane, so that's one thing, but Jaime kind of agrees with it. I'm trying to think like if this works, that the act itself is the thing, is the accusation of the act of leaving King's Landing. And so they have imagined accusations because it's Lysa. But then they say, yeah, had she known anything, she would have. Let's bring this up again. If I can. This is us. This is the community, man. We overanalyze Bran 2 over and over again to try to make sense of it.
It's interesting. Bran 2, you say.
Bran
you see,
2.
Preston, the ancient Egyptians believed.
Yes. Okay.
See, the way that I read that is that Cersei was like imputing Jon Arryn's knowledge to Lysa, like about, like, because Cersei at one point says something about like Jon Arryn had to go, but she didn't kill him.
Well, she said that. Well, Pycelle is the one.
Who thought that Cersei?
That's Cersei. Yeah. That he's like, when I saw her, I knew that she wanted it, and you're like, well, because Cersei never mentions anything about wanting to get Jon Arryn killed, or she didn't. She never mentions knowing about the book or any of that, or the bastard or any of that. So she says here. It's a wonder Lysa was not here to greet us with her accusations. So the idea is that she fled King's Landing, and they're interpreting her flight as she somehow knows about the incest, rather than my husband's dead and I feel like I need to go home, or I don't want my kid to be fostered. But of course, Cersei is paranoid. So let's say she, for the benefit of the doubt, crazy Cersei says this: "You fret too much. Lysa Arryn is a frightened cow who shared Jon Arryn's bed." And that's the weird thing here, because if they are talking about the incest, now they're saying that Jon Arryn knows about the incest, but Cersei doesn't know that Jon Arryn knew about the incest. So here you have to all of a sudden accept that Cersei knew that Jon Arryn knew about the incest, and now she thinks that he told Lysa Arryn, but even Cersei would be like, "Oh, what a remarkable coincidence that Jon Arryn died of a sickness after knowing about my incest." If she knew anything, she would have gone to Robert before she fled King's Landing, when he had already agreed to foster the weakling at Casterly Rock. I think not. She knew the boy's life would be hostage to her silence. This is the other thing: is if she knew about the incest, wouldn't it be a great reason to not have Sweet Robin fostered? She may grow bolder now that she's safe atop the Eyrie. And then he says, "Mothers, I think birthing does something to your minds. You're all mad." But if she knew about the incest, then her leaving town is completely logical. Whatever she knows, she doesn't have proof. Or does she? Of course they should be worried about her accusing without proof or whatever. Anyway, I see what you're saying, MJ. I guess it makes a little, that helps make some sense of it, but I still don't think any of it makes sense. I see what you're saying, that if you take the action of leaving town itself as something that would make Cersei think that Lysa Arryn knew something and would be paranoid, why they're talking about it now. But then it sounds like she thinks that Jon Arryn knew about it, which gets retconned away. And the logic with the fostering doesn't make any sense. So, I say that okay, I think that idea helps make sense of it, but I don't think it fully can save the mess that is Bran 2. Where yeah. Okay. I know I'm making it to the end. Did you two ever finish Picard? Carmine watched season 3 of Picard. I never finished season. You didn't? Wait, you
I did. I have.
I thought you were questioning me. You're like, I did? I did.
No, I did. Yeah, I finished it.
Yeah, Carmine watched season 3 of Picard. I never got through season 3 of Picard. Carmine said I should, but I never got around to it.
You're a TNG fan. I'm a Deep Space Nine fan, so you're a TNG fan. I feel like that was a love letter for TNG fans. I know Meera here is a big Star Trek fan as well. Meera, did you get anything out of it? Did you watch Picard season 3?
So I'm gonna admit I only watched the first episode of Picard. I wasn't vibing with it. I think I just wasn't in the mood. I might try it again. But it felt like it didn't feel like Star Trek, and I was like, silence.
No, you're right. It's I watched it just to get it over with.
And I might still. A lot of my friends really like it. A lot of people have recommended it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that at all. Just more like when I'm in the mood for Star Trek, it's because I want an hour of space communism where everybody's encouraged to get along and we don't have conflict between crew members, and I like that for an hour.
Cersei on Jon Arryn knowing about the twincest, he'd begun sniffing about her and Jaime. Cersei won a feast for crows. The problem with this, with gleaning anything into Cersei after, is that Ned, in his conversation to Cersei, reveals why the incest, and I think he reveals the Jon Arryn aspect. So Cersei finds out that Jon Arryn knew about the incest at the end of a Game of Thrones, but she didn't necessarily know about that Jon Arryn knew about the incest at the beginning of a Game of Thrones. Or your lover. Trying to find the right thing. I'm trying to think. I'm just looking through the text really quick. She I guess Ned accuses her of trying to talk to Jon Arryn about it, but she slaps him and doesn't actually even answer that. Because I guess they want to keep the whole Jon Arryn murder mystery a secret. Let's see here.
So like I interpreted that as like Cersei is kind of generally aware that people have an idea, because Littlefinger makes it seem like it's common knowledge on the small council, which it kind of is. I mean, he knows, Varys knows, Pycelle knows. And that it was like more a matter of evidence, because that was, what she says about, that Lysa doesn't have any evidence.
I mean, weirdly, Renly claims he doesn't know or acts like he doesn't know in Clash, which is really quite odd, because it seems like everybody knows. Let's see here, which chapter.
Yeah, I took that as just like a PR move, because a lot of Renly's things are PR moves.
Yeah, that's the thing is, you try to we try to come up with our headcanons to make this all fit.
Well, because if Joffrey is illegitimate, if Joffrey and Tommen and Myrcella are all illegitimate, then Renly's actions are a lot worse. Because he should be loyal to Stannis.
Right.
And so, him
He's
saying
that Stannis is a usurper, well, I'm going to be a usurper. And Stannis' argument is, well, no, the incest means I'm next in line. And so, Renly, well, yeah. So you're saying that that Renly could possibly know, but he's pretending not to know in order to make his claim better.
Yeah. Or at least less grimy,
Yeah. So,
and I do need to run here in a moment.
Yeah, I'm going to close down pretty soon, but here we go. Yeah, here it is. This is the thing. Eddard 12. He tells Cersei, "I know the truth Jon Arryn died for." So Ned tells Cersei, that Jon Arryn knew about the incest, and so and was murdered over it. And so it's hard to glean anything by looking later. Anyway, Meera, thank you for joining me. Carmine, thank you for joining me. What we got going on this week, man? I gotta watch some Shogun.
Yeah, it's up to you if you want to watch Shogun. I really enjoy it. I think it's worth everyone's time. It's easily top 3 best shows of the year. Easily in the top 3 best shows. What else is coming out? Oh, Star Wars stuff. Yay! More Star Wars for May 4th. is coming, and more Star Wars, and I think that's
Yeah.
about
When does it premiere? You say May 4th is when
yes.
the
More Star
Acolyte.
Wars. No, not Acolyte. Acolyte next month. Tales of the Empire. It tells the story of
Tales of the Empire.
who's Tales of the Empire, the Night Sister woman from Ahsoka, and
Hmm.
one other character you're not aware of. Tales of the Jedi were pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, did Trey ever get back to you on Tyrion 3?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he did get back to you on this.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask
He
you when
told
we
me. He told
called
me what I
earlier.
thought. Yeah. I mean, I might. Yeah. Any news on the Tyrion chapter? I just so last week my voice was all screwed up for like a week, so I might start recording the Tyrion. The Tyrion chapter's done. I just need to record it, and I might put out the chapter call for the next chapter after because I got in all the Jamie submissions. They're good. I just need to I might put out the chapter call for Aaron, which is uh which I've been working on, which I think will be pretty cool. But it's that's it. We
By the
went the
way,
whole stream with no politics. Right at the beginning of the stream, we talked about politics.
before you ask me, because I know you're gonna ask me later, and you're gonna get my dick about this. Did I read Tyrion 3? No, I'll tell you why. You weren't
What?
aware of what's been going on. Hold on, you weren't aware of what's been going on in the Midwest, have you?
Oh no! What's that?
Tornado Alley, baby. It's fucking
Tornadoes are hitting you?
no, not me, not yet. But we're getting like the blunt of all the fuck. Like where I am was storming all day yesterday. My internet kept cutting in and out, in and out, in and out. I was telling Trey this. My internet kept coming in and out, so I couldn't do shit.
Okay.
You didn't know this?
No, I didn't. I
Oh,
didn't.
well, now you know. Don't worry. Soon I'll be trading in tornadoes for hurricanes. So
Yeah, I was gonna say we're coming up on hurricane season down here shortly, like a month or
mm-hmm.
so.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, in
Hooray!
Maryland, we're coming up on just nice hot humidity season. It's good
Yeah.
times in Maryland.
Sometimes it is actually hotter in DC than it is in like Central Florida, which
Oh yeah,
astounds me.
but it's okay. It's okay. I'll just be I'll be by the pool. I'll be by the pool, guys. All right, thank you guys both for joining me, and I'll talk to everybody next time. Thank you all.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on. This was really fun.
Yeah, anytime. Okay.